Thursday night. What a weekend we got coming up for everybody. It's going to be a great show tonight. Everybody just shuffle in real quick. You know what's great was I've been saying to everybody, just a few minutes here while the audience trickles in, been saying I've been having these audio problems. So I hear this like a noise in the background, and I've done every audio check I possibly could. By the way, guys, you are my audio engineers. Please let me know how I sound. I found out that I've been using this very old fan behind me, and the fan is what was causing that noise, even with the noise gate seemingly in the right spot. So nonetheless, let me know how the audio is, guys. We have an outstanding show for you guys. As you can see, I have some phenomenal people already joining me, and we have a few people joining us later in the show. I see so many people. By the way, shout out to Mash. Mash becomes a major Mooch Maniac member. Mash, thank you so much for hitting that join button. You know, Mash found the button, but I'm going to show you guys something right above that outstanding description. If you look at that, take a look at that right there. That's at least an A- in 9th grade English. Take a look at that outstanding description. It tells you a little bit about what the show is about tonight. Is that join button, and Mash, smash that Mash button. That's a lot of buttons. Nonetheless, Mash hit that button, and he became part of the Mooch Maniac family members. I want to say thanks to him, and thanks to each one of these folks that I'm about to call out one by one. Please do, as we do start the show, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We're literally 5 members away from breaking over that 12,000 subscriber barrier, and I got to say thanks to you guys. Each and every one of you, it means the world to me. But special shout out and thanks to the great Judah Zook, Wooly Gamer, Mumble Ranting Gaming, Tyson Webb 509, True Witty, Alfonso Carter, Brap, who's going to be joining us later, Damien, the great Jimmy Harrison, who's here, Andy Hart, Red Hood 420, Ham Solo 5, Rob Jones, Night Ripper 7, Toto Dope, Thumbs, JC 2013, Lord Metroid, Rabbit Got the Gun, Fastbender, Archwar Angel, Biggity 08, Slow-Mo Backslap. Shout out to Slow-Mo and Gaming Forte. We're going to be doing DPS podcast 9 p.m. Eastern time right after this show. You guys got to go over and check that out when CrossFire's over. Henry Heck, Silent Merc, Ice Queen Gaming. Shout out to Dawn. Dawn, I know you wrote me earlier and said I'll be listening to the show tomorrow morning. She's over there in the UK. Shout out to Dawn. Otacon Ocelot, which, by the way, Ocelot, outstanding. Been playing a lot of Helldivers, too, with Ocelot. Great to be gaming with you. J-Row49, our major Mooch Maniacs, as I said. Mash just joined. Ekim, Bitrate, RPG88, Christian the Bad Gamer, 4-Star General, Truth Serum, your boy Roy, Scolari Brothers, DC Gaming, Miko, J Bari, and Gaming with Persona. Now, I have to say this. I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys that What's Up PlayStation is on Saturday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern. You guys know that's how I start my Saturday. That's how I recommend you guys start yours. But I do know when big games come out, sometimes they don't have a show. I'm not sure if they're going to go live this Saturday, but if they join the chat later, I'll make sure to advertise it. So if Bari or Persona are in the chat at any point in time, please let me know, and I will let the audience know as well. The great tactical gamer, Danelle Brown, that guy Smitty, Brian B, a.k.a. Delirium Blades, and our VIP Mooch Maniacs, the wise old gamer, Raji, and Domino Zero. And our honorable mentions, they're out there without food, water, or toilet. Come home, Passive Prophet, Slain Shalane, General Thad Ape, and Shadow Assassin. And our forever Mooch Maniacs, Launchshot 316, and the great Optimus Code. Guys, we got an outstanding show for you. We're going to get right into it. I've got about 12 topics ready to go. We'll probably hit about 4. That's just how we live here. That's what we do. Okay? That's just what we do here. Please do share it out. Like I said, hit that like button. Subscribe button means the world to me. Your name comes up in lights, too, on the show. Without any further ado, you guys know him as the Messiah, otherwise known as Craig the Tech Guy. Craig is back on the show. Craig, you've been very opinionated all week long on Twitter. Let me say welcome back to the show. How you doing tonight?
Oh, man, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for the invite. And shout out to you, Mooch, and the panel. Shout out to, and wish a lot will be here later on. You just have to deal with me for a boring half hour or so. But shout out to the chat, man. And thanks for the invite. Big fan of Lono here. So I'm kind of starstruck. So I may get tongue twisted here tonight. But thanks for the invite.
Absolutely, Craig. And, great segue right into our next guest. The great Lono joins us back again on the show. It's been a while, but you guys know him as Reforged Gaming. Does an outstanding 5-day-a-week show, sometimes streaming from 2 to 3 hours. What does he do when he's done with that? No, he's not done. He does an hour one-on-one, usually with a good friend or another gaming community member. Lono's here tonight with an unbelievable week of topics. Lono, can't wait to discuss things with you. How you doing this evening?
I'm happy to be here, Mooch, and I'm kind of glad you moved the show to Thursdays.
Yes.
Like, it actually makes it a little easier for me to come on, man. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm just kind of glad you said that, and I'm glad the audience hears that. The audience came around too. They said, Mooch, I'm really kind of glad you went to Thursdays. It really does help, especially in booking guests, because Friday night. And by the way, I'm going to go ahead and say this. So Lono says, I'm glad you moved it to Thursdays. One of the things was that games now come out on Friday. Right? So I was having a hard time booking people, especially in the gaming community, people doing shows, people who have YouTube, because they were busy either doing their own content or playing a new game. So what happens? I moved the show to Thursday, and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth comes out on Thursday. I mean, is that a me problem? I don't understand what the problem is here. But nonetheless, Lono, great to have you here. There's so many good questions to it. I think as the show goes on, I might even ask you, see if we get a little behind the scenes too on how you do that great show you do of yours. But here we are. We have a special guest. You guys know Forte. Forte is going to be going on DPS at 9 p.m. He's probably doing a cameo. The great gaming Forte. Forte, how you doing tonight?
What up, though? You got me for an hour, sir.
Well, listen, Forte, that worked out perfectly because that's when everyone else said that they could show up at 8 o'clock. So
you got me for an hour, man. I literally left work, got my copy of Final Fantasy, and can't even play it yet because we got this DPS. So I probably won't get a chance to play till later on tonight. But man, I'm excited today, man. It's gonna be a good one. It's
going to be great, Forte. Great to have you here. By the way, a shout out to In My Zone who subscribe, and Lucci Sky. Appreciate you guys, man. Please do hit that subscribe button. We're going to get over that 12,000 mark tonight. Lono, I like to put the special guests on the hot seat here. So there's so many, and usually I have one hot topic. I'm not going to lie to you. I've starred about 3 or 4 that I know have really got the gaming community up in a uproar, if you will. But I'm going to start with the one that we had earlier in the week, and actually it kind of stemmed and bled over from last week, is the layoffs. So my first question for you, Lono, really, Sony PlayStation, they cut 900 jobs. They canceled projects, closed studios. Question is how severe is this move for PlayStation? And then we're going to get into the rest of the rest of the industry that revealed their layoffs as well. But how PlayStation in general, how urgent do you think, if you're a PlayStation fan, do you think this is that makes PlayStation shift course and maybe their strategic plan coming into the PS5 generation?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say there's a couple of ways to answer it. Number one, I would say that the reason all of the analysts said that they saw this coming was this was going to be a course correction as we sort of return to pre-pandemic levels. This is going to be more in line with what we saw in 2019. And so it's not surprising that companies are doing this. And an 8% reduction is actually not that stark. We're seeing some studios hitting 16 to 30%. Embracer's talking about 50%. So this is not a dire sky is falling moment. A lot of people are trying to say that. It's a lot of doom and gloom out there. And a really easy way to show that this is not nearly as bad as people are making it out. Now, that's not to downplay it, right? I said in a video on Twitter this morning that I pulled from a stream, I think we can hold empathy in our hand and say, look, we feel bad. This is terrible. People are being laid off. But we can also hold in our other hand the cold, hard facts of, like, this needed to happen. And this type of course correction is common when you're coming off of what happened in 2020 and 2021. And if you want evidence that this is not as dire as people are making it out to be, pretty much every studio, except for obviously London that is closing, every studio that is downsizing and laying people off still have more employees than they did in 2019. So they still have net gained in size. That's also true for Bungie. Bungie did their own layoffs last year, and they're still larger than they were. So the growth and the reinvestment in Jim Ryan's virtuous cycle certainly has its weak points, and I think we're seeing that. And so that's the first thing I want to say is this is not this dire thing. This is not the end of the world. People, saying AAA gaming is dying and heading for a crash. That just simply isn't true. The second thing, I do think we're seeing the beginnings of a shift away from saying, well, we want to have 12 live service games by whatever it was, 2026.
Yep.
It seems they are targeting the live service games and either canceling them or shelving them to the point that they might as well be canceled. And I believe that came from Bungie. I believe Bungie kind of shook the tree or just shook him awake to say, listen, you guys don't understand what it really takes for this to work. And for Naughty Dog to get kind of snapped awake, to be told, like, listen, you would need basically your entire studio to become a live service studio to make this work. And for them to say, we don't want to do that. And that likely then led to other evaluations of other games. And I know we can look at Helldivers 2 and say, holy cow, this thing's a breakout game. That game's likely to be around for a long time with the way they're able to pivot and add and keep things fresh. But I don't think that means they're going to push as hard as they were originally planning. I also think they're going to look at budget reduction on their biggest titles, because looking at Spider-Man as an example, you know, the budgets just get so big, it's a threat to margins. And that doesn't mean that the games aren't doing well or not selling well, but you aren't making as much money because it costs you way more to make it. And I also think we're seeing this with EA. There's going to be a move away from licensed IP games because it's so expensive. You got to pay the piper. Disney wants their cut. And you're going to see, I think, a reduction in Star Wars and Marvel games going forward because it's just so difficult to hit the numbers needed to satisfy Disney. So that's kind of my answer, is not as dire, and we probably are going to see a bit of a strategy shift where we're not going to see nearly as many live service games coming out of PlayStation. And I know some people are probably going to celebrate that because they didn't want them to, but I'm curious then what they'll have those studios do, what they'll have them shift to.
Yeah, no, I completely see your point on that. You know, so Craig, you hear what Lono's saying. So when he says we may see a bit of a shift, I actually, when I first read the article and I saw what was going on, I thought initially it was the same thing he said, in the fact that it was going to be the games as a service games were going to be the ones that were drastically affected the most. But I mean,
which they said they were going to cut anyway. They literally said we're not going to do 12 to 14 games. They cut it. I didn't mean to cut you off there, Mooch.
No, go ahead.
They said they were going to cut these games anyway. Now, nobody knew what games they were going to be. The first one, as Lono brought up, they went to Naughty Dog, who is the last studio that won a Game of the Year, and Naughty Dog said we're not going to do things like this. So, or whether they can or they just don't understand how to do it, that's fine. They said we're not going to do it. Now, what to me, if you're going to not make the titles, that means you're going to cut staff. And that's exactly what they did. And Mooch, you brought up the fact that, you know, are we going to get back to the I'm not Mooch, I'm sorry. Lono brought up the fact, there's still more people there than were there in 19 and 20. But in 20, that's when the awful pandemic happened. I'm in the medical field, and it was terrible, especially that first 9 months. And so, a lot of stuff was done at home. A lot of people needed support. And this is why, you know, I talk to people in the industry. They say you don't want to be support staff. You just don't. You know, and he said that you know, even if you work on a movie set, as he does, he's like, you don't want to be the key grip. You want to be the best boy. So because that guy is going to probably stick around in case something happens. But as far as it being a shift, but they said they were not going to do these 12 games or 14 games, whatever they said. And I thought that was bullish anyway. I thought, man, that's also aggressive considering this is not something that you do. And they are off to a good start. You know, I always said that, you know, Jim Ryan got revenge on the people saying that this wasn't going to work with Helldivers. However, I think job cuts, I've been in that room when those people get that type of notice and you give them the PR, we're going to be here, we're going to help you do this. And I'm just to be honest, that never happens. I mean, it never happens. They give you the PR speech. And, you know, I don't like the fact that Jim Ryan went out there and took photos and did all that. Unless he was Photoshopped, which I know is possible. I don't like that. He knew they were going to shut them down. He knew it. So, and that stinks. And I don't care who's doing it. Lono brought up EA doing it. They canceled the Mandalorian game. That's a Disney title, 4-division Disney title. Disney does want a big slice. They want a slice. They don't want to cut. They want a slice. You know, of their IP. So
well, it's funny though, Craig, and I don't remember whose show. I watched so many shows. Lono, if this was you, take credit for it. I was watching a show this week, and somebody said, you know, it really was, and it comes off as really rude and crude how Jim went and took a picture 5 days before the studio closed. But then whatever show I was watching made a point, and they said, what if he didn't go? right? And he did a tour of all of the different. I guess he went and saw all of the different studios. What if he didn't go there? That would have actually maybe come off as worse. I'm not sure. I'm not by no means defending. Was that you, Lono, who said that?
Yeah, I said it was a bit of a lose-lose because if he's doing a farewell tour and people would have said, well, you didn't even have enough respect to visit this studio before closing them. Like, I don't think he walks away from that looking good. Like, you either visit them or you don't, and then you close them down. Like, it would have looked bad either way. I honestly think it would have looked worse to not go. Like you're not going to pay them the respect of saying, hey, it's great been working with you all these years, and then close them down. So I don't think that it's a lose-lose situation. When you have to close down a studio like that, it absolutely sucks. But, I think if he wouldn't have gone, people would be running the same story that, that's cold, that, cold shouldering a studio after all these years and not visiting. I think we would have seen similar, negative framing of it.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see both sides of that. Yeah, I want to say shout out real quick to Melrose. Mike, appreciate the $10 super chat, buddy. Thank you. He says, have a beer on me. I certainly will this weekend. It's been a long work week, that's for darn sure, but we've got so many games to play, so I do enjoy that. Thank you so much. The great Mash, too. Thank you so much for the 10 bomb. I'll use Lono's words. A 10 bomb. He dropped a 10 bomb gift, giving out Mooch Maniac family member passes. Outstanding. Thank you so much. Forte, you did an interesting video, about a day ago, and you titled it, Even the Industry Leader Isn't Immune. Now, what's interesting, and we have a couple of great Xbox fans that I see them all right there in the chat, and they're like, wait a minute, where was this same energy when Xbox laid people off? Now, Forte, I know that maybe that wasn't necessarily the point you were trying to drive home, but what did you I want the audience to kind of hear what I heard in regards to your video and what you're saying. Is it a case that Sony being the industry leader at this point, it seems like every company, no matter how big they are, Embracer, I don't think we've heard much from Tencent. If we did, guys, correct me. But Forte, what did you mean by even the industry leader, in this case, PlayStation, is not immune to layoffs?
Yeah, it's just that, we talk about, and this is something that's been going on since last year, and this year is probably going to shape up to be, worse when it comes to like all the layoffs and we're starting to see more shuttering of not studios, but just games being canceled and stuff, even now this early in the year. It just ultimately comes back to the simple fact that 2020 was a year where everything got bloated. Like, gaming went into a stratosphere where people that either never played games before or people that stopped playing games like 5-6 years ago because of life, family and having jobs that they had to do to support their families and stuff. And they found themselves back into gaming, and it just turned into something that nobody was ready for at that time. So like Lono and what I just said, ultimately those gaming is still in a better place than it was in 2020, but there is still a place where we need to cut some and trim some of that fat. And it also just comes back that PlayStation made some bets, or they attempted to make some bets that I feel like is still going to benefit them in the long term. But ultimately, it comes back, if you are trying to get into a market like in the middle of the market, by the time you decide to jump into it, you might be towards the tail end of it. Like the boom that you were seeing with these live service games and stuff, that happened a long time ago. Like, you saw the apex of that a year ago or 2 years ago. PlayStation made this decision to, hire all these people to start to ramp up on these endeavors. And to their point, all you need is one or two of those to hit, and you're perfectly fine. But this is what happens when you make a drastic change in your direction. The moment they said that we were scaling back our live service and going down to like 6 of them, I was like, oh, well, yeah, we're going to see a bunch of layoffs at some point. It just comes down to when are they going to do it? And of course, they waited to after their earnings call and all that stuff came out. And then that's when you started seeing a lot of this stuff happen. And that basically just says, like, listen, Nintendo is considered one of the overall leaders in this industry. But, when it comes to high-end consoles, that's what PlayStation, that's where they sit at. And even they cannot, absorb the types of funds that they have to do when it comes to spending money on all these games, managing all these studios, especially when you want to get back to the things that made you as made you as important to gamers as possible when it came to the types of games that you make, the experiences and stuff that you made. And I feel like they kind of got away from that just on the outset. They may have always thought that they were still going to make games like that, but the perception was a little bit different on the outside. So they had to like go out and tell people, no, this is the direction we're going in. We want to make sure that the PlayStation brand is as strong as possible. We wanted to make sure that you understand that we want to focus on the things that made us great, the things that our fans love and everything else. And just like what they just said, all that stuff that they said in that puffery note where it came to like all the things we're going to do, I'm definitely sure that a lot of that stuff is going to happen. But as you read through those PR things, it's like, I'm like, okay, I can kind of take or leave a lot of the PR speak that's up in there, but it just lets you know that it doesn't matter who you are. You know, Epic, one of the biggest companies out there when it comes to one of the biggest games, they laid off 16% of their workforce. And you're talking about a game that prints money. So that's nobody's going to be immune to this. You know, Xbox, a lot of people got laid off earlier this year. I know I got the same thing. A lot of people asked, like, well, you ain't make no video about Xbox. I was like, well, at that time, I just wasn't making videos. So that's kind of why that happened. I just started doing them again over the course of the last 2 weeks. But, you know, Xbox last year, 1,900 people got laid off, you know, from Microsoft in general. So it's this rollout that you're going to consistently see happening over the course of the rest of this year.
Yeah.
It was 10,000 last year, Forte. You missed.
Oh yeah, you're right. 10,000. Yeah, 10,000 people. That was across Microsoft. And 1,900 this year?
Yeah, 1,900 this year focused on AB. That was focused largely on ABK.
Which we all kind of knew was going to happen after the fact because, you know, all of the different things. But and even Microsoft had to come out and say that, oh no, a lot of that was already planned. But you know, they always try to spin a lot of that stuff. So I think it's going to happen like that.
No, I think the one thing though, and I see a lot of people in the chat saying this, it's not that it's not the same energy. The one thing is that throughout the entire FTC, CMA, all of that, this is going to be better. We're going to be taking care of more people. They're going to be better under us. Yeah. And then they saw that layoff come, which by the way, I'll sit here and say that's what happens a lot of times when a merger like that exists. So it's not that it was just that it was kind of like double talk. It was like everything's going to be great, everything's going to be fine, but we've got to let go of all these people. And I understand there's redundant positions, et cetera, et cetera. So I understand all of that. But at the same point, I think that was one of the things. And Lono, I don't know if you get this on your show back and forth in the chat as well. People are always comparing, saying, "Wait a minute, how come people weren't?" They were harder on the Microsoft layoffs. And I think it was because we had 2 years, right? Thank you. But I think it was because for 2 years we were told it was going to be the promised land with Microsoft.
Well, yeah. I mean, there were lots of promises made, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know?
Well, you know what? You got to think about those Xbox layoffs and stuff. And it's not to defend it, but what do you think they're going to do when they're in the process of purchasing them, but they still need that company to operate? Can you imagine if they came out and basically said that, there's some redundancies and we're going to have to let people go if this does go through? You're going to have that. What is that studio going to run like during the process of them trying to acquire
exactly.
it? So they're going to come out and they're going to say everything that they need to say to try to keep the morale up at the studio, the development, or the publisher, because that's what it was. They're going to do everything they need to. Now, ultimately, if you're smart, like most of us on this panel is, a lot of the people in the chat are, I hope, you know that when this went through, at some point, there was going to be reductions. We just didn't know how big those reductions were going to be. And it ended up being pretty massive when it came to just the ABK side of it.
Well, I spoke with somebody at SIE, and they said that PlayStation doesn't lay off throughout the year. So this will be it for them. They do it, right before fiscal year switches. And they also told me, they took care of people. They gave them their bonuses. A lot of people were speculating like they weren't going to do that. I would anticipate ABK being sliced a couple more times. Like, I don't think the 1,900's actually about 15% of ABK total workforce. Now, we saw an 8% number because they were saying that represents 8% of Xbox's total workforce, but it was targeted at ABK. It was roughly 15% of ABK. I would expect more because I just think that's what you're going to do when you make an acquisition of that size. You are going to continue to slice and cancel projects, especially now that they're looking at bringing more games to more platforms and functioning more as a publisher. They're going to analyze the most profitable property and projects, and they're going to gut things that aren't making it, that aren't going to generate that revenue. And that's how you get the ROI on the acquisition. So I don't think they're done targeting ABK especially.
Yeah, and I'll just add real fast to the budgets. I do agree they're going to have to reduce budget because
Absolutely.
Yeah, because Sony, I mean, the Spider-Man movie, didn't cost as much as that game. It did. And they bought Insomniac for 229 to 232 million. They got 100 million over that budget. That's not going to work. And yes, it's not that they didn't make money off of it. It's just that they didn't make the money in the margin that they thought they were going to make. And all this started with PSVR2 not hitting the number that they thought it needed to hit. So they come out with the more hardware, the Portal, and what do they come out and say? They say, well, this is going to be counted as a console sale because they were trying to buoy the console. I'm like, okay, you could already tell there's trouble here. Like, this is trouble, And then you had Spider-Man bundle, you had a Call of Duty bundle, and you had Sony misread the market. They misread it to the point where they thought now that the chip shortage is over, we have all this demand. Yeah, but the demand was last year. I know 2 people that were going to get PS5s, but they decided to get something called a RTX card. That's what they went with. So, and a lot of people bought PCs and put together PCs while waiting to get a PlayStation. So again, I thought they misread the market with being bullish with 25 million. It's just, I was like, I said it when they did that. I'm like, that is a bullish number. They obviously know something that the public doesn't know. And I have stock in Sony. So when they didn't hit that number, I'm like, well, here come the layoffs. I mean, it's literally said that, like, oh, people are going to get laid off. But continue on.
Well, I do. To the budget. I also do think the fact that we are still tethered to last generation is not really giving that bigger swath of gamers that would have transitioned over by now. They haven't done it yet. Like, I always tell, being a person that works in retail, I always tell customers, like, you won't see a huge number in systems like really balloon until you stop selling Call of Duty and NBA and Madden on last gen systems. You got to kind of force those people to want to move on to the next thing, and nothing's going to do that until then. So like, we already know Grand Theft Auto. Like, I do think even if Call of Duty and everything is still last gen, like they're still making it for the next one, we already know Grand Theft Auto is going to be next gen. So I kind of think that next gen is going to really start for a lot of people when Grand Theft Auto comes out, because that's the game that's going to make people move. But they also, I feel like, because you're right, I do think they missed the mark, but I also think they missed the mark just with the live service stuff, because it cost a lot of money for them to spin up all those companies, not to spin up, but the purchase companies, spin up teams that's going to make those games, to make a bet that you were going to be able to get as many of those games, what did they say, 12 by the end of 2025?
Yeah, it was aggressive. Yeah, it was bullish. Yeah. That's what I mean. It was a bullish.
Yeah, so it was even more bullish. Like, I would have thought that they would have sold 25 million systems before they spun up 12 live service games, because being the person that played, Destiny for 8.5 years, I'm like, dude, there is a lot to that. And a lot of people right now are seeing burnout. Like, I stopped playing. I can't even pick up a live service game right now. As much I played Helldivers because I like still playing it, but every time I turn that game on, I feel like I got PTSD because I played 9 years of Destiny and I don't want to do it anymore. So there's a lot of people that's kind of transitioning away from that. That's why you're seeing people talk about JRPGs like Red Blue, Relink and everything, and people want to jump into games like that. That's why you're seeing Final Fantasy and stuff, flying off the shelves at retail and stuff today. Not saying those games wasn't going to do it already, but people are kind of ready to move on to something else. But there is still a player base there that they want to kind of, attach themselves to. I just think they waited too long to do it. And since they had no type of footprint in that market already, it was going to be hard for them to do it. And they're kind of paying for that now by making all these moves, in the interim.
I want to get to that. And actually,
Yeah,
I'll welcome Death Singer and Brap to the show. I got a couple of super chats here, and then I'll ask these guys before we move on. Shout out to Lord Metroid. He says, Helldivers 2 is a lot of fun, having a blast. Shout out to Lord Metroid. Sir X-Man says, I was looking forward to a brand new Twisted Metal. Sir X-Man, that makes two of us, to be honest with you. That was something I really, really coveted.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
It is. But, it's funny. A lot of times we have these news that breaks, and the news that broke after that was that game was never really actually greenlit. It was still, I think, in the pitch mode. But nonetheless, it's still, I would have liked to have seen that come to fruition. Connor says Sony need Helldivers 2, Final Fantasy 7, Rise of the Ronin, Stellar Blade to hit home runs. Helldivers 2 has the first one already done. So, Connor, absolutely. We're going to get into some of those games as well. Snowdragon says, do you think the industry is changing from $300 million games and wants to reevaluate the scope of these games now? Everyone is scaling back, ? I don't necessarily know if I've read a number of different articles today saying that big budget third AAA games are not going to necessarily go away. We're kind of reading into this and we're kind of embellishing a bit. I still think you're going to have some of those very big games. I just don't know if maybe we'll have as many, but I don't think that you're going to see those go away.
I think you're going to have just as many. I just don't think you're going to have as many in a short period of time because I think they're going to use development cycles to go across multiple years of their P&Ls in order to subsidize that over the course of a couple of years instead of saying, oh yeah, we're going to pay for the development for this over the course of these first couple of years. You're going to see games they're going to have one or two big games probably every year and a half. The fact that they came out and said we have nothing for you basically from their main tentpole franchises for the next 12 months lets you know that they were very, very expecting some of those live service games to launch, and now they're trying to change up their development pipeline to get back to what they were doing before. So you're going to still see those big games. You're just going to see them spread out more across all their studios instead of seeing maybe two big ones from two of their big publishers or the two of the developers. You're going to see one a year, and then they're going to subsidize it with all their second party and third party deals that they do throughout the year. So we're just kind of waiting to see what that looks like.
Yeah, and I was told that Stellar Blade was going to get pushed back.
I was told the same thing.
Just to give them a something to have in the late summer.
I don't think that's a bad idea at all. Brap, what do you think about what you're hearing? I know you want to chime in because you've got so much to say.
Mooch, you're coming in low, by the way, at least on my end.
Am I low?
On my end,
I don't know what he's talking about.
Usually people are telling me I'm too goddamn loud.
No, you are low.
All right,
really low.
I'll fix that.
We need loud Mooch. We need loud Mooch.
I need my audio engineers in the chat, guys. If my
low,
please let me know. I can definitely raise the volume.
Yeah.
Put that roadcaster to Unity, sir.
It's going up.
So Mooch, I'm sorry. What was the question again?
Well, really, there wasn't just one question. We were kind of discussing the layoffs in general. We did start on the Sony because Sony did start the week off with a bang with the 900 jobs and the canceled projects. The closed studios, and then we kind of metamorphosized into where we are now. And we talked a little bit about how the differences are between Sony's situation and maybe some of the reactions you saw in the news and in the community on how Microsoft kind of got when they had their 10,000 layoff, then they had the 1,900 from the ABK deal, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting time, right? In the gaming industry, it's kind of been a shitty week for the industry. More layoffs. The studio 505 Games is closing. They're closing offices, studios. It's an unfortunate time, sad time in gaming, and I feel for the people who've lost their jobs. The organization I work for went through this past summer. We laid off about 5% of our workforce, and those were difficult conversations. Those are conversations I had with people, like letting them know that they were being let go.
It's tough. It's hard.
Yeah, and so I understand the business side of this too. I mean, anytime, and it was very similar. Sony's word tracks were kind of similar to what I heard, and within my own organization, when you know you're going to miss projections, when you know your profit margin's been impacted, the first thing all companies do is they look at their FTE count and they're like, okay, where can we eliminate positions? Are there redundancies? How can we right size? And also internally, it's like do more with less. A lot of companies now coming off the COVID bubble, and this is in a lot of industries, and just talking to some of the clients that we have, which are many of them are tech and Fortune 500 companies. A lot of them are really investing in
AI.
AI. Well, I was going to say operational efficiencies, which a lot of it is AI related, and so that's I wouldn't be surprised to see some of that happening in the gaming industry. And this is just course correction. I mean, the gaming industry was riding a high of highs. There was a lot of money. I was talking to Christopher Dring about this from Game Industry Biz, and we were discussing. And I said, "Look, this is kind of like a course correction." He's like, "No, I agree. There was a lot of money being pumped in by a lot of VC money coming in at the time during the COVID bubble boom.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the growth. Like Matt Piscatella put out numbers. Look at 2019 to 2020. Look at that. It's like 38 billion, like 50 something billion. I mean, but interestingly enough, and I've seen a lot of people say, "Oh, well, this is the gaming market crashing." It's not a crash; it's a course correction. One of the things Matt Piscatella put out today, one of the graphs he put out was that if you look at 2020, just overall spend in hardware and gaming and gaming accessories, it's been flat since 2020. So if it was a crash, you wouldn't see that flat trend. And then you look at the Circana numbers for this past month in January, U.S. Yes, hardware sales were down 4% year over year, but overall spending in gaming in the U.S. was up 15% year over year. So people are spending money. It's just that the profit margins have been impacted. There was a lot of overhiring. That's not uncommon during the COVID boom. A lot of different industries overhired. I could speaking from experience. I lived that managing 50 requisitions at a time. That's like that's really double our rec load. Well, like on a normal basis, right? And so we hired a lot. It was just like this boom period of hiring. I've been in TA for 17 years. I've never seen anything like it. It was, and in my back of my mind, I'm like, this is not going to be sustainable. At some point, the bottom's going to fall out, and that's what's happened. So, so this is just course correction. It's the entire industry that's doing course correction. I don't think AAA games are going to go away. They're probably going to figure out how. I have a couple theories. One theory I think, and this is something I think Strauss Zelnick may have mentioned, it wouldn't surprise me if you see an increase in the price of AAA games based on the size, the amount of content, the amount of hours those AAA games offer a consumer. I could see that happening, and I could also see, like them creating development efficiencies to, drive down costs. But I wouldn't surprise me if we see some kind of price increase at some point.
Brap,
I don't know if that's going to be this year.
I think it's happening, Brap. I think it's going to happen. I predict it. And this is just me. Grand Theft Auto is going to cost $99.99 for the standard edition.
People
will buy it.
Listen,
people will buy it.
You never speak in absolutes, but whenever we were talking about this, and I want to get Lono's take on this. I want to kind of piggyback what Brap was just saying. Brap, you made a good point. Lono, I'll ask you two questions here. First and foremost,
real quick, Mooch, real quick. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt. There's one part that Forte mentioned about the old, like the previous console gen.
Mm-hmm.
The Logic pulled up the numbers, just like doing the math of what we know about the PS5 units sold versus. I mean, there's still like 70 something million PlayStation 4 owners. That's based on monthly active users. The other thing too is typically at the 4-year part of the midpoint of the generation, you typically see the price of consoles go down. Like they were $100 cheaper.
They went
year
up.
4, the PS4 yeah, they went up because what's happening is manufacturing is still expensive. Like Sony's getting beat up in manufacturing right now. Like that's impacting their bottom line too. Like the cost of parts to manufacture hasn't gone down. Plus they're getting beat up with the foreign exchange rate and some of the inflationary dynamics. But that's part of the other issue too. Like people year 4, the price goes down. You start getting those people who are waiting for that price increase. Okay, now's the time I'm going to go buy a console. They're $50, $100 cheaper. I think Forte said they've gone up now like $50 with the what's it called edition? The disc, whatever it is, the discless edition.
The discless edition.
Yeah.
The interesting thing around that, like you said, I agree with the Grand Theft Auto thing because Rockstar, it's just like with Nintendo. You haven't seen another game released under Nintendo that was $69.99, but they knew they could do it with Tears of the Kingdom.
Tears of the Kingdom, yeah.
They knew they could. So they said, you know what? It ain't that
We're
this game. We're going to do it because we know this is a game that can definitely move the needle. So we're going to do it. So Grand Theft Auto is definitely up there. But I always try to tell people to think about, the way that sales works. If you think about some of the most sold games, like especially day one purchases, like today, Final Fantasy came out today. Now, I know my side of the world is just a small side. I got a little pond, but I had more copies pre-ordered of the $100 version than the standard version.
Wow.
So we're already so you're already telling people by your buying habits, or telling these publishers and developers that you are willing to spend more money on something by buying the more expensive version. Like even when it comes to like NBA, people buy the Mamba edition, which is the $100 version, and the Jordan edition, that's the $100 version, and Madden, the Ultimate Team version, which is a $100 version. So you're telling people that we're going to give you a $70 version of a game, but we're making a lot of this money up on the back end, and that's basically how that kind of works now. It kind of tapers off once you start getting sales and stuff through the holidays, games drop in price. That's kind of where that kind of happens at. But they already see that people are willing to spend more money on games. There was $250 version of Elden Ring for the DLC with the statue that sold out day one.
Yeah.
And the DLC only costs $40, but you paid $210 for the extra stuff. So that's where they're making a lot of that money.
Let me say that's what a lot of people don't realize is there's a market segmentation out there that will pay top dollar for games. I mean,
absolutely.
That's any other industry.
But here's the thing. So I want
tiers,
you guys are talking
tiers.
about dollars and prices going up. My question for Lono is, I never speak in absolutes on the internet, but I would say if we are going to see a price increase, Lono, on games to maybe recoup for some of these layoffs and just the money situation that's going on across the industry. Typically, like we saw this generation, it happened at the beginning of the generation. A lot of people are all of a sudden saying, oh, well, it's going to be GTA 6, that's going to be $100. And again, that may be the case. But I would really think that if there is going to be another jump in price, it would be when PlayStation 6 or Xbox's next console comes out. I don't think it would be mid-gen.
Yeah, I don't know about a price increase. I know they're going to have to get creative like we saw with the Insomniac leak. They were either considering or they've already scoped out that Spider-Man 3 will be broken into 2 parts and they will sell each part for $50. So you're almost buying the game, 1 year, and then you're buying part 2 the next year. So what you're ultimately doing is you're spending $100 for Spider-Man 3, which gives them greater cushion against the rising cost to make it. Like the budget was going to be even larger than Spider-Man 2, because Spider-Man 2 is selling better than Spider-Man 1, but it costs so much more to make. That's why I think they're starting to have this sort of, wait, we need to reassess what we're doing here. So they might just get creative like that and say, well, let's maybe do a game in 2 pieces, maybe do games episodically, or they're going to have to get creative with monetization, which really turns people off because, like we've seen, Spider-Man has no cosmetics that cost anything except for a limited time they're selling some for like a charity and then they'll be free later. And that is something that people really respond well to. So if they try to do a price jump, I have actually said, I think as this sort of turn in the industry happens, you will start to see different pricing for games. I actually said I think we're going to see more $40 and $50 games like Helldivers, and then you're also going to see maybe $80 games, $100 games, because I do think the idea of, well, $70 or $60 is standard pricing for every game. I mean, there are single player games that you'll buy for $70 and you'll play it for 25 hours. And then you'll buy a game for $70 and you'll play it for 100 hours because there's just more to it. There's more replayability. There's more depth and substance. So it is interesting that video games got kind of stuck into a single price format with the exception of indies for a really long time. And I had been saying for a long time, we are spending way less on games than we did in the past. And we looked up cost of making games in the past, and it was, I believe, Zelda, Ocarina of Time, Mario 64, and Mario Kart were all built simultaneously for like $12 million, which is insane because those were like the 3 big dog titles of the Nintendo 64. And imagine trying to make 3 games for $12 million now. Like, that's just insane. I mean, we're talking about movie-sized budgets for video games now.
Ridiculous.
And I was always called a corporate shill for saying we don't pay enough for a lot of these games for what goes into them and how much we get out of them. The amount of time you get for these games. It is in the digital entertainment realm, what we spend and what we get out is absolutely incredible. And I think that entitlement's getting sort of shaken at its core. And I think if you look at the people and the reports about income and those who spend into the market, this is a luxury market, and I don't think it will respond negatively to price jumps because it's already bearing price jumps. And as Forte said, people will buy the big ones. They always want the biggest and the best, and I think that's because it's a luxury market.
It's Steve Jobs. Yeah, Steve Jobs, he did that. Oh, go ahead, Brad.
I was going to say, to piggyback what Lono said about, I think I heard you say, Lono, people are calling you like a corporate shill. That's not being a shill. That's like applying math. If you look at like the macroeconomics, like the GameIndustry.biz had an article about this. Are we paying more for games? And in fact, if you look at, you mentioned the cost of what Ocarina of Time was like $12 million. That game, I'm trying to look up the price of that game. Let's just say, for argument's sake, it was like $50. And what did Ocarina of Time cost? Like $19.98?
Just to be clear, they built 3 games for $12 million. It was Ocarina, Mario 64, and Mario Kart. Yeah, it's absolutely insane that they were able to do that. It was like 200 people and $12 million to build those 3 games.
Yeah. So they probably charge, let's say, and I don't know, I'm just throwing out a number here. Let's say $19.98. Games cost about $50. $50, the value of $50 in 1998 is equivalent to to $95.09 today, and we pay $70 for games.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So we're actually paying less for AAA games, and the budgets have, like Lona said, the budgets have gone up tremendously, and that's one of the things Sean Layden said. Sean Layden said the issue with sustainability of AAA games isn't the size of the teams or the size of the budgets. It's just that it's that the price of games hasn't kept up with the increase in cost of development.
Correct. And I agree. Yeah, I remember Steve Jobs, rest in peace, said there's a group of people that will pay for the exclusivity of getting the better stuff. And yeah, it's these games are going to go up because you're simply just not paying enough. And I agree with what Brad just said. And that is the issue when you are going to, I mean, come on, $350 million. They're talking Grand Theft Auto could be the first $1 billion game in development. And they're talking about it. So you're going to have to pay more. And, and it's just, and maybe not for all of it, but I just think Grand Theft Auto 6 is that one game. And there's people here in the restaurant business, and I'm sure you've gotten the question, why does the porterhouse cost this much? And you simply say to them because it's worth it.
Yeah,
you're going to say that to them, right?
Especially if you put gold leaves on it.
Yeah, you put gold leaves on it. Why is this costing so much? And because it's worth it. You don't say nothing else to them. You just entice it more. Yeah. So they're going to do this. Just get ready. Yeah. That's why I said in the chat. I said in my my podcast yesterday. Get your cheeks ready because it's going up.
The other thing Lono said about this being a luxury hobby, it really is, and I have concerns about the entitlement of some of the voices in the community. We deserve cheap. Yeah, we deserve cheap AAA games. I'm like, what? No, you don't. You don't deserve that. Like that is you're not entitled to cheap things. I mean, and if it's a budgetary issue, then as a consumer, you need to make decisions based on those budgetary or whatever your budget allows. Like gaming has always been an expensive hobby. It's a luxury item, and this idea of games everywhere or we deserve cheap games. It's a little concerning, that kind of race to the bottom. We had Colin Moriarty on before Terry, remember she was on the show with me this past September. We talked to him about it. We asked him that question. How do you feel about the entitlement to AAA of gamers who want cheap AAA games? He's like, look, they need to put their money where their mouth is. And I don't disagree with them. Again, I'm not advocating for. Look, I don't like price increases, but the reality is if we want these things cost money. You got to pay for them.
I think if people want the experiences that they've gotten over the course of the last half a decade, when it comes to the size, the quality, the look and feel of these games, you're going to have to spend more. Nobody wants to spend more money.
No, I don't.
But trust me, I don't want to spend more money. But maybe you got to look yourself in the like. When we were growing up, I didn't have every game that I wanted when I grew up. I bought them, later on when they got cheaper and stuff. So it might be a legit reason to have a backlog in the next 5 to 10 years because games cost so much and you just can't afford to have everything. I think right now everybody's just used to being able to say, hey, I can spend if I spend $500 to $600 on games in the calendar year, which is a very small subsection of people. That's a lot of games that you're going to be able to play over the year. But now with the way that these budgets and stuff are looking, either you're going to get less, the games are going to fall in quality, or they just won't be as big as they are now because, that's another thing, like Lono said earlier, you're going to probably see more $30, $40 games and stuff where the experiences are a little bit more narrowed down. And then you're going to have those games that's just going to be like you said, Grand Theft Auto, Horizon, whatever they're going to do with the next Last of Us and Uncharted if they ever bring it back and stuff like that. Even Xbox is going to do things like that when it comes to their bigger games and stuff. They're not going to leave money on the table when they spend $300 to $400 million, which is the price of some of the biggest movies we ever seen in our life.
Singer, I want to ask Singer that because I'll piggyback off that. So, what do you think when you hear Forte say that even Xbox will do that? So, if Xbox will for the foreseeable future, Singer, welcome B Money as well to the show. If they, for the foreseeable future, Singer, are known as going to be Xbox Game Pass on their devices, right? And that's where predominantly they've told their customer where they would prefer they purchase their games or rent in this case. I mean, that's why maybe we will end up seeing more than the 4 games we've been told will end up on other platforms because Xbox still wants people, gamers, to buy games. They did a really good campaign early on, Singer, saying that you don't have to buy games. But at the end of the day, you do have to buy the games. And I think that that's what's going on here when we see minimal growth in Game Pass over the past X years, right? Since 2017. Yeah, Singer, nothing we're saying here is really taboo or really bad. It's just it is what it is. We said earlier in the week that we have the sky is falling. The industry is doomed. Well, it's not doomed at all. We kind of already hashed over the layoffs, which you can dabble in too, Singer. But when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, you have to buy the games, or like Phil said, you have to extract more money out of the current players you already have. And how do you do that? You raise the price of the actual IP, the game. Singer, what do you think?
Yeah, like what everyone said about the raising of the prices. Thank goodness I'm on PC because that 50% off is going to hit different on Green Man.
Yes, sir.
When they're 100, that 50% off it will hit different, and the 20% off elsewhere. So fortunately for PC, it's not really going to affect me that much. I buy what I want to play anyway, so it doesn't change nothing for me. But I completely agree. They're going to raise the prices of the games. Or some different people might experiment with microtransactions. The return of EA might happen. So who knows? The Game Pass, all the games are going everywhere. Of course they'll go everywhere because you need to. Game Pass isn't growing. They already revealed the numbers. 35 million?
33.
Yeah. Oh, 33. Either way, it's not a good number. No matter which way you cut it. Considering how long Game Pass has been out there. So I don't know what Xbox is going to do. I assume more games will be coming over. Some of the old, bigger games, like I could see Starfield coming over after these 4 games.
Singer, let me correct myself. 34. I apologize. I looked it up.
Oh, okay. Well, it doesn't matter either way. It's a really low number. So I don't know. Games will just increase in price. You'll see $80 games, probably $100 games for select titles. The thing is, if the standard version goes up to 100, how much do you think the collectors are going to be? The upgraded versions, like the Mamba Edition.
150, or the sky's the limit. Who knows, that Singer? Right. No, he makes a good point.
So that means the Ultimate Editions for statues are going to be, what, 500 at this point? Because they're already at 300 for some of them. So it's, either hope for the best with Game Pass or, as Forte said, get a backlog, because
I think backlog's going to be real backlogs, and it's going to be a legit. I had a conversation with somebody about that at work, and we were talking about backlogs, and he was like, "If it wouldn't be in my backlog if I really wanted to play it," and I was like, "Oh, okay, so you just buy games to buy games." Basically, that's what you're saying. I think this is really going to be the beginning of people truly having a backlog. If we head in this direction where games start costing that much more, it's going to be a backlog that you don't even purchase yet. You're going to be like, yeah, I'm going to not buy this until I'm ready to play it at this point.
If you're a seasoned Steam user, you've already got 100 plus games in your backlog anyway. Facts. So your backlog's only going to get fatter. So, to be honest, some of these games I am never getting to. I just bought them on a sale, and at no point in the future can I see me ever playing the game. Just no time.
I'm currently running through 3 games myself, Singer. I completely hear B Money. I got to ask you. So I've got a tweet here from the great Emran Khan. You guys know him in the industry. He's all over Twitter. He says, "Make an unsuccessful game, get laid off. Make a successful game, get laid off. Audiences say that games as a service is out of tune with the market, so you make a single-player epic game, get laid off. There's no safe jobs in the gaming industry because it's driven by an inherently unstable model." Now, you don't have to necessarily refer to that. I thought it was an interesting tweet that he put out there. But, B, where are you? You've always had your ear to the ground with these types of things, and you very subtly say these things on Brap, and I'm always listening to every syllable because it makes a lot of sense. B, when you saw what happened over the course of the week, because it started with Sony and then it just literally dominoed through every big company that we know in the gaming industry with layoffs, what was your initial thought, and what do you know about it?
Well, in regards to the Sony thing, we kind of knew this was happening if you paid attention to the Insomniac leaks, because literally everything that's happened was in that leak. We saw the email from Ted Price with them going back and forth, saying that they would have to, eliminate jobs at Insomniac, and, how he wanted to keep, particular pieces of the team together. So we knew that was happening. We knew that they were going to close the studio. Everyone assumed that it would either be Media Molecule or Bend, just because they, haven't put out anything in a while. Long behold, it's London Studio, which hasn't had a great record either. So that kind of makes sense. So in regards to that, we knew that was coming. It wasn't a big surprise. It was just we were waiting for it to happen. And of course, it had happened before the end of the fiscal year, because they want to go into the new year with a clean slate, and with the potential of having some sort of gains, within that first quarter. So,
B, your microphone's botting a little bit, just so you know. I don't know if it's just a bad connection with Discord. I don't know if you want to try jumping back in and out, or just unhooking your mic and trying it again. It is body. We did hear what you said, but every couple of words would bot out, and then it would be clear as a bell again. So, when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, I see what you're saying. A lot of this, the writing was on the wall. We kind of touched on it earlier, B, when we were talking about the situation with 2020 and the pandemic. Everybody was home. A lot of people were consuming mass amounts of digital media, in forms of games, movies, subscriptions. We saw numbers go up. We saw consoles selling, beating record-beating numbers of prior generations, because we were all home. Well, when they could find one, that was. Nonetheless. But I think that when it comes down to it, now we're seeing a bit of this layoff occur, and it is a little bit because that bubble has burst. And again, B, I saw this, and I think Lono touched on it on one of his shows again, where he said, I think it is, Lono, let me not put words in your mouth. You said if it's under 10% on the layoffs, it's typically, what did you referred to it as you're cutting, like, whether it be redundant positions or just scaling back. It's nothing that's abnormal. When it's over 10%, that's when it's alarming.
I was reading somebody in my chat saying if it's under 10%, you're basically removing waste. It's not a reaction, or it's not this like destructive thing. Like when you're seeing companies hitting 16, 30, and even 50%. Like if you look at what's happening with Embracer, that is obviously like a 4-scale alarm. And doing an 8% reduction of your total workforce is more of waste removal. This again, if you look at the size of all of the devs, they're still larger than they were. So this was a net gain for the studios and for the companies. They grew. And I pushed back on this a lot with people when we discussed this the other day, when they said, well, they shouldn't have done this. And I said, well, you can't really unknit the sweater. All of the growth and all of the reinvestment that they've all done in these studios and what they've been able to build, and now they've amassed more people, more institutional knowledge, that has a long tail. There's dividends that will come from that in future titles, in Spider-Man 3 and in whatever Guerrilla's doing next. So it's not this super sharp dichotomous thing like they hired too many people and now they are all gone. It's not that simple. And that's why the 8% is not nearly as alarming as what we're seeing at other publishers and other studios.
Okay. No, thank you for clarifying that. So that when it comes, B, did you want to piggyback off of any of that? I'm sure the microphone has been remedied.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Yeah, kind of like what Lono just said. I talked about this a lot over the last couple of years of how Jim Ryan was going in and increasing the sizes of all these teams. So some of these teams added 100 to 150 people to their teams. So the cuts, yes, it's a large cut, being 8% of the workforce, but a lot of those teams are still bigger than what they were prior to them gaining, all that additional staff anyway. So it is, disappointing that they lost some people on those teams, but they still are bigger than what they were before.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things. Shout out to Neil Augusto, who was in the chat beforehand. He says, even though the layoffs are bad, he said, I think fanboys are blowing them out of proportion. It seems like, I mean, was that... I don't know. I don't know how to really... I don't know if the media really ran with it and said that the sky was falling as much as everyone just kind of reading the headlines and thinking that was the case. I don't necessarily think that it was. I do want to kind of... Does anybody else want to speak on this subject? Because we have so many topics to get to, and I really want to talk about something else for a second.
If you just had to just put it at one thing, I think there's two ways to look at it. You have people that I'm not going to say overreact, because you really don't overreact to when you see stuff like this, because nobody wants to see it. But I think you have one side of people saying, it's not a big deal. This is something that's going to happen in business, especially where gaming is right now. Mm-hmm. And then you're going to have the other side that's going to be super passionate about it, because they probably have relationships with these people, or some of these people that they know that were impacted, and it's more of a personal thing to them. And I think then you have the whole gaming thing in the middle when it comes to like, something that happened to PlayStation, and you're an Xbox fan, and you talk about, well, you see, it happened to you guys too, and then they want to defend it, and there's all this other stuff. So it's always this back and forth thing that always happens when stuff like this comes up, because whenever something good happens to one, we got to find a way to tear it down or prop up the side that we care about the most. But I think you see a lot of passion from people, especially the people that really are telling people that, hey, don't be disrespectful about stuff like this. People are losing their jobs and stuff. And that's because the people know people inside the industry, especially when you're talking about the news side of it, when it comes to like IGN and all these other people that talk to these developers straight up. It's not just a name on a piece of paper to some of those people. It's like people they actually know there that are drastically impacted by that.
Absolutely. Brap, you always bring up this one point all the time, and I guess we'll leave it on this. And Brap, if you want to comment, is the gaming industry, we always kind of talk about it like it's its own unique world. I mean, this happens in the automotive industry. It happens across the board. I think everybody that's listening or it's on this panel has been laid off at one point or another, right, Brap? I mean, where there's things like this that happen. The best thing to do is you kind of, you brush yourself off and you get that. A lot of these people are wicked talented. Like unbelievably talented. They're going to go out there and get another job. It's and a lot of times, just like the NFL, you'll see like a coach get let go on one team. Where is he 2 years later? Another team, probably with a higher position. Mm-hmm. So it is unique that we kind of discuss these layoffs different than we discuss a lot of layoffs in the other industries out there, Brad.
Yeah, I mean, like you look at big tech. I mean, they laid off 250,000 jobs last year. I think 2021 or 2020. I think it was 2022. Amazon lost about 50% of its stock value. I mean, like these things aren't unusual. I mean, the gaming industry is subject to the same laws of economics, of capitalism, of it's very cyclical. It's not this own unique thing. And if you look at other industries, and other industries are going through the same thing, it's very much the same. So that's why I kind of didn't have the skies falling response to a lot, like what I'm seeing a lot on social media. We're like, oh, this is a gaming crash, and like, no, this is not a crash. It's more so of a course correction. Understanding coming off a big boom period in COVID, and there's people that started gaming in COVID, and once they were able to go out and touch grass again, those people aren't coming back.
Right. That's very true.
That grass is very nice, especially when you're not allergic to it.
Yeah, exactly. Or if you got Forte's grass, which looks like Augusta.
It does.
I gotta give you an update on that grass, bro.
Forte's grass. Let me tell you, I envy Forte's lawn.
It is.
I ain't taking no pictures of it lately, but Jesus.
I mean,
Forte,
is it
that
green already? I mean,
that
come on,
lawn,
Forte, and you're in the cold part of the country.
No, it's not green right now. It's kind of like everybody else's, but it was looking very nice going into September of last year.
Your grass was so green, Forte. When you took that video, you sent that out in those pictures on Twitter. Crayola didn't make that green yet. That was awesome.
No.
You have the best lawn.
Let's see, is Forte live on a fairway? That's why I call him Fairway Forte.
It's unbelievable how great his lawn looks. So Forte, we need
No
more of those
weeds,
pictures.
no crabgrass.
A lot of work. Shout out to the wife.
So I'm gonna switch. I'm gonna switch over real quick. This was kind of like breaking news today. We saw a little bit. Yes, I believe it was yesterday with Remedy. Maybe it was today. I get the days kind of mixed up these as we kind of progress through the week. Remedy goes ahead and buys their IP and their rights back to Control. Saber Interactive leaves the Embracer Group, and then today we find out Toys for Bob makes an arrangement and leaves Xbox Microsoft. Lono, there's more than just the layoffs to talk about. I mean, this to me was bigger news because I was like, wait a minute. And some of them hit a little bit harder than others. I mean, Remedy wanting Control from 505 Games makes perfect sense. That game was a smash hit, and they're probably going to do very, very well with that. There's even a Control multiplayer game I heard in the works. Saber Interactive wanting to leave. Embracer seemingly is sinking. As they sink, Saber says, wait a minute. We've got a game that we're working on here that could, make dividends for us. We want out and we want to go ahead and make our own and be independent. But the one that really kind of hit home was the Toys for Bob. I mean, this is, we've seen a lot of executives leave. We always use, say like Mike Ibarra as an example. Mike's someone that I think is extremely talented. Mike left the minute that the acquisition happened. You see Toys for Bob saying we want our independence. Yes, they also said in their statement that they have probably some sort of a deal that they're going to work with Microsoft, maybe do some timed exclusive things like that, but they wanted to be independent. Lono, this is another kind of chapter in this shift we're seeing in the gaming industry in the past 2 weeks. What was your take today?
The interesting about Toys for Bob is there were all those rumors like 3 weeks ago that they were closing down, and then that got shut down. The rumor got sort of dismissed that they were not closing down. So I'm wondering if there was a possibility of them being severely reduced or something, and then they started to say, well, wait, can we do a move here to go independent? There was also now a report that Gearbox will be sold, and that there's a buyer, and I think that's either next week or next month, which we will we'll find out who decided to buy them. I guess is it
without Randy Pitchford?
I don't know. Randy Pitchford told them internally there were 3 possibilities, so I don't think Pitchford is out. I think he's going to still be a part of it.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got similar thoughts there. I think what we're going to see is some of what was predicted here. You're going to see either talent leave. People are not going to want to be a part of this big machine, especially watching what's happening right now. Studios are going to attempt to get out from underneath of this, and if they can't, you're going to see talent leave, right? Pete Hines retired, and now, Ibarra seemingly thought he was still going to be there. He was going to do an interview and everything in January, and then he was gone. And so I wonder if we'll see more studios follow suit, or at the very least, we've seen this happen. We've seen exodus of employees and creative directors, and then they go start their own studios. And that's another possible reality here, is that these companies are just not going to want to be underneath this giant conglomerate of control. I mean, I was told by somebody close to the layoffs at ABK that they were targeting full-time employees, and they were really wanting to get more people to fall under the contract policy at Microsoft. So again, if you're a studio and you're staring down that barrel, you might be trying to figure out a way out of it. Like, we don't want to be under that. It's going to be, creatively destructive to have to, fold under that policy. And, the worry and the concern would be, with what's happening, will there be funding? Will there be investors? Will there be money for independent studios or AA studios, or people that are essentially not protected? Will we see more acquisitions, or will we see more exodus? I don't think it's known right now. I saw speculation that there would be concern about smaller studios, independent studios, or AA studios struggling to get funding, because a lot of the investors are going to look at the market and say, maybe next year. It's a little dicey right now.
Yeah,
so that would be a concern, because I saw analysts saying that the hiring should start back up again in 2025, and it'll be slower, so that way it'll be more stable, and then we'll hit a better growth pattern that won't be so reactionary, which is what we're reeling from right now. So if other studios decide to say, hey, we don't want to be underneath this, we want out, that would be my question. Okay, how do you survive right now when you break out on your own?
Yeah, so it's a good point. You say that too. So, and Craig, I'll give you the mic. I just to kind of piggyback what Lono said, and I'll volleyball to you, is a situation right now where you hear, Gearbox going for sale, and that's all fine. But who would be willing to take on all of those people and all of that cost right now, especially after the week we just saw? I mean, Craig, that's something that we don't know who it's going to be. But nonetheless, this week, Lono, the one thing that you mentioned that I just want to say is that this made me pump the brakes severely when people are like, oh, well, Sony will just grab this team, or Microsoft's looking to go grab these guys. I don't know if necessarily, I think maybe the spree may have come to, I wouldn't say an end, but maybe a pause.
Yeah, I thought I saw a report today that Cloud Emporium Gaming, the people that make Star Citizen, they've allegedly laid people off. They haven't put the number out yet, but that some of it, some of their guys are gone, and that's a game that cost close to $600 million. But most of it was crowdfunded. Yeah, I just think that you didn't hear when Hiroki Takoki was talking out all the things he was saying. You didn't hear anything about M&A at all. Now, maybe that was done on purpose, because, they may be doing it, but they don't want to say, well, how are you going to buy something? You get rid of these people. I just think it's going to be it. I was surprised that now here was the good news about all this, is that, selfishly, I'm going to have to say this, Mass Effect 4 is still in development. So that I'm happy about.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that's me being selfish. But overall, I just think that it will be harder to possibly go out and get independent funding. However, there's always people looking to put their money somewhere, but you may get less money. Maybe you had a $100 million buy-in at some point, and now they come back and say, I can get you 60. I think we'll see something like that. And I have seen analysts say that things will kind of stable off next year. At least that's the expectation, that more hiring will happen at the end of this year to go into next year. But fingers crossed, fingers crossed. And it does look like, when the person wrote the article, I don't know if it was, I forgot where it was at, or it was WCCF Tech or whatever, saying that GTA 6 is going to be the shot in the arm. If that game misses, then I think some people could be in a world of hurt. But we still got a little bit of time.
What does it take for GTA to miss, though?
Yeah, that's the whole thing. I don't know what their number is going to be. That's why I said before, I think it's going to be one of the first games that hits $99.99 USD regular. And for the regular, you go in to buy, Forza, you work in that business. Somebody just comes in, wants the regular GTA. it's $99. If you want the deluxe edition, you may get up to $149 or something like that.
They gonna do what a dude did today when he was picking up Final Fantasy. He didn't have it pre-ordered. He was like, I was like, oh, $74.99. He was like, God. He's like, that's exactly what came out of his mouth. He was like, God. I was like, I know, man. I said not even 5 years ago, $59.99 was the number.
Yep. So
you'd be surprised. And guess what? And a lot of people, as soon as you say 100, well, I got 6% sales tax. So as soon as I say 105.99, guess what they're gonna do? All right, let's go.
Yeah, let's do it. Like I said, how come the porterhouse costs so much? It's worth it. That's all you need to know. So,
it's worth it.
Well, I was just gonna say, name anything else that we all buy day to day that hasn't gone up. You guys, I mean, it doesn't matter what you
need. Some shark cards for that online. You're gonna be playing.
Four people to eat at Five Guys is gonna cost you $70. So let me tell you. So shout out to RPG.
Four people to go to a movie is like $100.
That's what I was gonna say. You know, when In-Game came out, I remember we went with 7 people and it cost us almost $240 for 7 people to go see In-Game.
You could tack $100 onto that now because In-Game was a while ago. Shout out to RPG88. He says, update the resume. Shout out to RPG88. Mr. Phil takes it. Won't repeat the rest of it. He says, I think everyone is overreacting. It's going to be okay. This is going back a subject. True Witty says, games cost too much to make and it's too cheap to buy. You know what I mean? So, well, you know, and it's funny because when you actually break it down, because everyone will always say that, you know, you can't lobby for this, but a movie is going to cost you $20 for the ticket if you're going to IMAX. Maybe it's more now. And then, God forbid, you want like popcorn and a soda. You're legitimately going to be. It's through the roof, and that's for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. You're hearing games like, and we're going to get into a Final Fantasy VII Rebirth in a bit here. But that game is. There's people saying I'm 60, 70, 80 hours in. I haven't even gotten halfway because I'm doing all the side missions and I'm playing all the mini games. So shout out to True Witty.
Before I jump off here,
go ahead, Craig.
Poor Tape brought up In-Game, and just for people to understand this, In-Game cost Disney $356 million to make. That's with everything they had, all the effects, all the marketing. Spider-Man 2 for PlayStation Studios, $350 million.
So
for one game,
and we can discuss that in a little bit. You know, you got to hear what he's saying there, Lono. That's a point that I've heard a number of people say here when they're talking about PlayStation going back in and looking at their books and saying where they're going to cut here. A lot of times, you know, you have, and listen, I'm a huge Last of Us fan. You guys know. I think whatever Neil Druckmann will make will be fantastic. But he probably went in when he was making this game and directing, and at that time he had carte blanche. They were not going to stop him at all. He probably wanted to take some of those outtakes 6-7 times. Those are like $100,000 days at the studio. You know, those are the types of things where they're probably going to say you're going to get 1 or 2 takes from there on out. You're not going to get 7 or 8 of them. You know, so Lono, that's one of the types of things I'm thinking you're going to see in some of Sony's cuts. It's not that they're going to cut the big games, but you know, they're going to say, hey, you have to get this thing done a little bit more efficiently.
I don't know if they'll micromanage to that degree, especially with a creative powerhouse like Naughty Dog. I don't know if they would want to do that, but I do think they did say they want to reevaluate how they bring these games to market. And again, that could be what we saw with the Insomniac leaks, right? Are they going to start to break games up like we saw with Spider-Man 3? I mean, I don't know. A Last of Us is kind of the perfect game for that. If they wanted to do the third installment in 2 parts, and then you've got the TV show synergy, and then they're able to sell, you know, part 1 for $50, and then the second part of it would be $50. That's $100, and then that gives them more revenue. And that was a point that was being made in chat, that it's not just about copies sold, it's about revenue. And when you bump the revenue by, you know, from $70 to $100, that extra $30 really lessens the amount of copies that you have to sell. And when you're selling copies in the millions already, it really starts to add up and help with their profit margins. And so when he said they want to reevaluate that, I don't know if they're going to go to the degree of being like, no, you got to get this in one take, or disrupting the creative process. I saw a good observation on Twitter I believe it was Wooly who retweeted it. The writing team on Spider-Man went from like 3 people to over 20, from Spider-Man 1 to Spider-Man 2. And so maybe just evaluating that, I do think there is studio growth that folds back on itself, works against efficiency as well as profitability. I mean, if you look at the salaries of these developers and engineers, and I do think we're seeing what I said was like the death of the super studio. Some of these studios are going to remain AAA and they're going to remain putting out really great games, but they might never really get beyond the sizes that they are, because you do, I think, see some of these massive studios and their efficiency is terrible. I mean, it's like an aircraft carrier. Yeah. If we look at what's happened with some of these games, that they're chasing trends from 2018, 6 years ago, you start to spec out your game, scope out your game, and then you launch it. And it's like they couldn't make adjustments as the sentimentality of the player bases were changing. If you look at a game like Kill the Justice League, right? I mean, they could not have changed that game. It was too late. And when you have a larger studio and a larger project over the course of those 5 or 6 years, those are those risks that you take. So would not surprise me at all if the goal here is to reduce to a size, as Herman Hull said, the ambition alone is not just growth. Like, let's just grow for the sake of growing. And that gets back to Jim Ryan's virtuous cycle, I think, has some weak points. I think you do have to say studio size can start to work against itself. And so rather than disrupting creative process and saying you can't do any more takes, they might say you guys cannot get beyond this size because it works against the bottom line. The budget gets too expensive when the team gets too big.
All right.
So, B, just to take what Lono said, B, I want to ask you, because I think you've been a huge proponent of this. A lot of people, there's some people in the chat saying it now. It's all over Twitter basically every day. The minute they saw layoffs or anything like this, they're like, well, there you go. PlayStation's going to put all their games day and date on PC. And I don't see that necessarily happening. I still don't. I know that games as a service, the live service games, absolutely. Because the strength of a game like that is the audience. It is the population. That's what keeps a game alive when you're talking about a multiplayer game only, especially. But when it comes to their single-player games, they still have a purpose. They still have a reason to sell the box. B, there's no shift in that as far as you would see right now, or do you believe the hype that maybe they will do a day and date at some point?
I mean, like you always say, never speak in absolutes.
Right.
We can't say that it won't ever happen, but looking at an interview, that's not something that they're going to do. I mean, we just look at their financials and we see the low margins that they're running at. If they start to choose to put their games day and date on PC, then that drastically changes the revenue that they have coming in. We all of us have PCs and we all own PlayStations. If they start putting their games on PC day and date, why would we have a PlayStation?
Well, that's it, B. In not to interrupt you, but B, that makes perfect sense. It's when you see them up, people go, well, you know what? They're going to try it and we'll find out. But Xbox tried it and we did find out.
And they found out.
Right.
And look where they're at. They messed around and they found out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And look where they're at.
Yeah.
Now they want to put all their games everywhere because the revenue is not coming in. I talk about this all the time on Brap, and people always, try to act like I'm crazy. Soon as you start telling people that you do not need to buy our box or our product or whatever, and you can go to someone else's ecosystem and get the same experience, guess what they're gonna do? Leave. And that's exactly what people did. That's why Game Pass is not growing. Why would I buy your game in the Microsoft Store or be in Game Pass when you're allowing me to buy the game in Steam where I feel more comfortable at? So now you're taking a cut on the revenue of your game that you would have if I bought it in your ecosystem. And you're also taking a cut on other games that I would buy there because you told me that I don't need your product. I can go somewhere else and have the same experience, and I don't have to give you as much money.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
so you're diluting your ecosystem by telling me that I don't need to be there, and that's exactly what happened. And that's exactly what would happen if PlayStation did the exact same thing.
There would be no difference. Absolutely, Deathsinger. What do you think?
I don't think it would be as much as that, because people underestimate how big PC is. Like China alone has 330 million PC gamers. That's just China. That's not counting the rest of the world. right? So they are the biggest place. There is nowhere bigger on earth that plays PC than over in China. Now, how many of them do you think own a PlayStation? I would gather to say not many. How many own an Xbox? Not many. How many own a Nintendo?
Yeah, but that doesn't
reason
matter
for that though,
because
Deathfinger.
all we got to do is look at the numbers. Xbox's overall system sales has declined yearly since they've moved all their games to PC. That's just facts. So, and if you look at the U.S. numbers, they have been lower than what they were previous generations.
Mm-hmm.
But then how much of Xbox's problem...
The biggest home field advantage that PlayStation has is here and in Europe.
In Europe, yeah.
So now when you tell people that you no longer need to buy the system, guess what they're going to do? They're not going to buy it.
Well, I'm gonna push back on this because I think when the PS6 rolls around, day and date will be more common with PlayStation. They're going to do it with live service games, and we know why that's different. But I actually think, and this was part of the Insomniac leak with Spider-Man 3, and there was a multiplayer component baked in. So maybe that's the only reason why. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I actually think they will look at the numbers and say that PS4 to PS5, you have established such a massive digital library. If the PS6, if it's strong enough to mimic your average gaming rig that you could buy at like a Best Buy or Amazon, people will not switch because it's significantly more expensive to buy like a pre-made gaming PC from Amazon or PC. So the average consumer will not willingly leave behind their digital library to go to PC simply because PlayStation games are going there. I actually think the market would bear this and the PlayStation owners would stay on PlayStation. I don't think you would see this massive exodus to PC because of the cost barrier. And secondly, leaving behind their library. So I actually anticipate PlayStation being more okay with day and date by the time the PS6 rolls around, because that's roughly in 5 years or so. And by then, our libraries will just be too big, and then it just would not make sense to leave because you're going to be buying the same games, but on a system that you're unfamiliar with. It's more expensive. There's just a lot of barriers to those consumers jumping. I think
that my only
Can I?
and I just want to push back real quick is, Lono, you make some good points there, but the thing I've had a hard time wrapping my mind around is when people say, the consoles will die out and PC will take over, but PC is a piece of hardware as well. So at the end of the day, majority of people would rather go buy this item that comes off the shelf. You plug in one or two cables to it, and you start to game. And like you said, the digital library comes with you. I don't see how that same consumer will drop that ease of use to either go and research what kind of computer to buy, even if you say, I'm not going to build one, and research the components and know what you're going to get so that you're getting the same quality output that a PS6 or PS7 in the future would give you. It just seems like it's a more complicated, and they're going to buy hardware at any point anyway. The other point was the digital games. Well, PlayStation's working on having their own storefront. So those digital games would go with you over to that storefront, hypothetically, anyways. So they could do that. They could probably pull the trigger on that now, and your digital library would go over to PC tomorrow. So
and why would PlayStation care if cost of manufacturing is a trouble and loss on the hardware is a trouble? Like, they wouldn't care where you go at that point. Like, if they let you bring your library and you stay as a consumer in their ecosystem, they're still making money off of you.
True, but they are making. Here's the thing, though, Lono, and in this generation is one to show. They're making money off the console. They're making money off the controllers. They're making money off of the 8 headsets that they've sold. They've made money off of the they made the PlayStation Portal. They may even now rumor that they're going to have a dedicated handheld. I understand VR maybe not the strongest talking point, but nonetheless, I bet you by the end of the generation they'll probably break even. I don't think it'll make them a fortune. So there's just a lot of accessories. Plus, when you have the PlayStation PlayStation unit in your house, you're also you get what HBO Max, this and that. They're getting small cuts from all of these digital downloads and music and games and movies you're buying off of their system, and you want to have a presence in the home. And I think once you go only PC, you will lose that market and you will lose a lot of money that is dedicated, whether it be alternative hardware or those digital purchases done on that box solely. So
I think everything you just said is why people won't leave, though. You got to remember, the average consumer doesn't think the way we do. Like, people in your chat are like, "Oh, I would switch to PC. I'd switch to PC." Well, they're highly informed consumers that would know how to make that transition. All the hardware you just outlined is another reason why the average PlayStation consumer would not jump to PC, because they have all these accessories. They have a Portal, a VR2. They've got a DualSense Edge. If they do this handheld thing, right, it's got that Apple culture vibe. Again, I think the average consumer, I think PlayStation knows this, I think they would not switch to PC. There's too many barriers. There's too much loss. They would lose the library. They'd lose their hardware. They'd lose their accessories. And they'd lose the plug and play, the simplicity of, I go home, I plug this into my TV and I'm done. I just think PCs are more daunting for the average consumer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mooch,
Mooch,
go ahead, bro.
Yeah, real quick. The thing with China, to go back to the China thing, there's a lot of PC players, or I guess PC owners in China, but not all of them have capable rigs to run these games. And China's got its own issues with trying to get content, trying to get consoles in the marketplace for obvious reasons, the Chinese government. So there's that issue. The other thing too is, and I think everyone's made some really good points here. The one thing that with day and day, again, right, Mooch, never say never, right?
Never.
I think it's a little bit more nuanced than, some people are going to stick with their digital libraries. They're not going to make the jump. And I think that's partly true. But I think you're going to have some people who are going to go out and buy PC. And the question is, how many of those people are going to ditch the PlayStation 6 to go PC? But not just the consumer aspect of it too. The other aspect is the additional lift. And what I mean by that is that going day and date is an additional cost to PlayStation. And that's counterintuitive to the direction they're heading right now. They're actually looking to decrease cost and increase profit margins. If they're going to develop games in parallel, that you could do. There's two ways you can do that. You can either, you could actually do it in parallel, or you could have two separate teams. If you do it in parallel, you're having your one team focusing on both platforms. There's optimization, there's QA, there's longer development times, there's more cost, more money. There's more because of the increased cost and money associated with longer development times. There's more stress on those games needing to hit and make money. If you have two teams, that's additional cost again, and get more stress on that game being successful and bringing in a large amount of revenue. So, and in the PC space, not everybody's interested in PlayStation games. I mean, I don't think the PlayStation games have done very well on PC with their except for Helldivers 2. I think that's probably their most successful game. But no surprise, it's a live service game which tends to do very well on PC.
Yeah.
But I think in order for it to make sense, and this is they would need to, because there would be some cannibalization effect. I was actually talking to somebody in the industry. We talked about Xbox earlier, and they had mentioned that people in the industry believe that Xbox cannibalized anywhere from, I've heard estimates from everywhere from a third to a half of their hardware install base by going PC. And so if you're going to cannibalize a third of your hardware customer and you lose all that revenue, remember the hardware is a store, basically. It's a conduit to reoccurring revenue. There's also the money to make off licensing for having applications on the PlayStation hardware. When you lose all that money for a one-off transaction, you got to figure out how to recoup that loss. And so the only way I think cannibalization makes any sense is if you identify another revenue stream that's not just going to cover the loss of revenue from hardware, but it's going to also make you more money. I always point to Apple. When Apple went from the iPod to the iPhone, right? They basically cannibalized the iPod. But with the iPhone, though, they're able to generate, not just recoup the revenue lost from cannibalizing the iPod, they're able to generate even more revenue. So I think it'd have to be something similar in that regard. But there is an additional lift that I don't think people discuss enough, and there is additional cost, and that just seems counterintuitive to where Sony is. Like, you require more headcount, maybe contingent workforce, and it's just cheaper for them to port a game right now. You remember per the leaks, they were saying like if a game costs more than $5 million to port, we're not interested in doing that on PC. So there's that aspect that I think a lot of people don't think about, and it's counter to again, like I said, to what they're trying to accomplish right now. Now, again, I'm not never say never, right, Mooch? I mean,
you just can't.
10 years from now,
you just can't.
They could say, you know what, we feel like it makes sense for us. To
It very well could happen. And I know, Singer, you want the microphone. And Lono, remember, this is just great discussion back and forth. But the one thing I've been saying for probably the better part of 6 years now is the double dip method. And I'll use myself as the example. And I think a lot of people on the panel, a lot of people in the chat also have the same situation. I'm predominantly a console gamer right now. Do I have a competent rig? Yes, I do. I have a 3090 Ti. Thanks to the great J-Dub also for some great hookups here. But I have a very capable rig. And the thing about it is that I do play on it. But if I have the opportunity to buy it on Xbox, PlayStation versus PC, I generally lean towards the console. Again, just ease of use. It's in the family room. Just turn on the TV, turn on the PlayStation. Not only that, but you build your friends. You build not only the library, but you build a community of friends. Some of the friends you've had for some people listening, from high school, college, work associates, this and that. That's all there. Then you add the double dip. If the double dip is working, and I agree with Brat, by the way, a lot of these games that came out on PC for the PlayStation games a year, 2 years, 3 years later, probably haven't done as well. We've had a lot of PC guys on the show, and they're like, if it released day and date, you'd make more. I'm not necessarily going to argue that. You'd make more in the beginning. But if you've already squeezed everything you possibly can, and you've reduced costs, like Brap was saying, you don't have to have that extra team working on it, and you can get the full utilization out of the PS5 in this case. And then you have another team like Nixus say, hey, you know what? We're very good at this. We're going to go ahead and make this insane PC port that's going to run flawlessly, give the best accessibility options, give all the things that PC players like to have. And then that's a much cheaper port for them to be able to do. And then they only sell 2 million more in the end of the day. They're making a tremendous amount of money because then they can charge full price again. Unless that Singer says he gets it on, CD keys or something for $50 instead of 70, which I tip my cap to him as a Mooch.
And Mooch, yes. The other thing, real too, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but the other thing too, it's an additional. Logic brought this up from a development standpoint. It's an additional abstraction layer for Sony because they run on OpenGL. So being an additional abstraction layer for going to OpenGL to DirectX. So again, additional cost for that.
This is okay. Shout out to Gamer and Logic as well. Yes, Singer, you were going to say something, and I took the mic away from you. I apologize.
It's fine. Thing is, PlayStation, the games are like 2018. Like a game from 2018, you port it over. Okay, it's nice, but you honestly expect the Steam users to care? Like those who check it out will check it out. But
That's a good
the
question,
game is
Singer.
like 6 years old. Like you did no splash in the Steam. You look at games that release day and date, like Hogwarts Legacy did. Baldur's Gate 3 did absolutely amazing. Power World absolutely amazing. All these games do absolutely amazing. But then these games come over and it doesn't even find a player base. Like, at least some of Xbox's games find a player base. Like, Sea of Thieves has a very steady player base when it came over to PC. It's found its audience, and they're keeping it running. Well, probably more so than Xbox. But if they... Like, Helldivers has shown them, with your live service, definitely day and date, because people will... If it's a good game, people will mess with it.
Absolutely.
But if you port a game from 4 years ago, don't expect it to start and don't be surprised, because a lot of Steam, a majority of them, are informed gamers.
I agree.
Because PC has less casuals than the console space because it's, more involved. You have to troubleshoot gaming. Shout out to, all the issues.
I hear you.
It's way more involved. So if they do day and date, which at some point in the future they will, I was saying the PS6 generation, so next generation onwards, you could see the single-player games, some of them, going day and date.
I think I could see some of the smaller titles going there, or maybe vice versa, but I could see one or the other. But again, we see how it cannibalizes the console, so that's going to be a decision that's, again, yes, definitely PS6 era. for those types of games. Singer, we're on the same page there. Shout out again to Mash for another 10 gifted, and I gotta say also thanks to Lono. He said, I'm here from Lono's channel. I appreciate Lono being here tonight. I appreciate also Mash with those gifted subs. Thank you so much. True Witty says the problem is gamers want. I did not read this one. The problem is gamers want cheap games at a deal, but want 60 to 120 FPS, but price increases. But want blockbuster bangers with no MTX. Devs can't win in this situation. So he's saying the gamers want everything.
It's the publisher.
Yes.
Can't win in that situation.
That's true. B said that B, it's botting a little bit again, but B said the publishers can't win in that situation. Go ahead, B. Do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, I mean, we want all these great things from these games. We don't want any microtransactions. We want the best of the best. We want the games to run at high frame rates and this great fidelity, but nobody wants to pay for them. I've been saying it for a long time. People, you got to buy your games. This is not a hobby for everybody. This is a luxury. If you're into gaming, it costs money to be in it, and it costs money from both sides. So yes, we want all these great things from these games, and at the end of the day, we have to pay for them. They're just not going to be there. We don't go to Denny's and expect a Ruth's Chris steak.
It's true. It's true. And Singer, what? B's kind of preaching right now. And Singer, you're a PC gamer, but let's be honest, your PC wasn't cheap. And yes, you get games cheaper than we do, but you're still paying. If we're paying 70, you're paying 50. I mean, you're not paying 5. So no.
You're not, but that's obviously one of the benefits, because you have people who those certain websites who do the deals and whatnot, and that is on them. That's not on us. They want to put forward the 15% off. So I am, of course, as a consumer, is going to take advantage of that, right? You put it on sale, 15. Sure, why not? Why am I going to pay full price when I can have the discount? Cool. And it's all above board and official, so it's like, okay, cool, nothing wrong with that. But also, cycle back something that I missed was there is a majority of the PC audience which don't mess with consoles, because they've already spent $3,000 on their PC. They love their 200 frames a second, native 4K, all the bells and whistles, DLSS 3, all that kind of stuff. Consoles ain't going to provide you with that. It's a lot more of a budget gaming compared. So those are people that both Xbox, Nintendo, and Sony, they're gamers, quite a load of them that exist that they're not getting money from. They're not monetized. The only person monetizing them is Xbox. Has the opportunity right now. So there's free money on the table. Well, not free money, but
I know what you mean.
I also think PC gamers tend to play different games too. Like I heard some of the games you read off this Singer. Those are games that tend to that the PC crowd tends to gravitate towards. Like the PAL World. That's very much Helldivers, Baldur's Gate 3, Western RPG, D&D Universe.
But what about Hogwarts and Red Dead and other games like that? They did incredibly well. Like the big AAA blockbusters.
Red Dead came out a couple years after?
Yeah, that wasn't day and date.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's a Rockstar thing.
So but it did well. I don't think it's necessarily that I personally don't think that the issue is day and date. I just don't think that because at the end of the day, these games are new anyway. Regardless if they release within the zeitgeist of, console release, they're still new to the PC crowd because this is the first time they've been there. I just don't think that their games really have appeal to that crowd per se. Like even like Red Dead Redemption 2 is kind of this open world RPG. Maybe something like that might do well for them, but I just don't. I personally don't think it's going to make that much of a difference if they go day and date on PC. And then there's obviously, issues like I mentioned. There's additional costs, potential cannibalization, and even with the potential cannibalization of hardware, that impacts their manufacturing in terms of economies of scale. They're not getting the discounts, and the larger order, the bulk order, if you will, of parts that you have for manufacturing, the cheaper the parts are for you to get. And when that shrinks, that hurts your economies of scale, and you end up paying more for manufacturing of hardware because you're ordering less parts. So that's something else that they have to factor in too.
Got a super chat here from Truewood. He says, then you got the PC guys pirating games, big loss. Well, I mean, that's that's
a small subsection. That's a very small subsection.
I agree, Singer.
That's probably like less than 5% of the entire PC base.
There's definitely money being made on the PC side for sure. Glinser says high game budgets equals more remakes and director's cuts. We'll see about that, Glinser. Sheffield Sphere, good to see Sheffield's back in. He says, I'm with Brap. I don't see how PlayStation would recoup their money and then some by bringing games day and date to the 5-finger discount race. I don't think that's the case.
Oh, come on. We're not all pirates, like that Singer said.
It's not. No, that's a misconception of the PC fan base. No, there's a very vocal.
We might have a lot of cheaters, Death Singer. But
well, I mean, everyone has pirates. Cheaters. Everyone has cheaters at that point. But I mean. If you played in the old 360 lobbies, you know about the cheaters on consoles.
No, they're definitely there. But I think cheating's a little more aggressive on the PC side.
Well, it is because it's easier because you can actually go into the game files and adjust stuff.
Yeah.
You can actually go into on console. You can't do that. You can't go into the directory, change some of the files, replace some things. Yeah.
I will say this, selfishly speaking, if PlayStation went day and date on PC, I would never buy another PlayStation, and I would be okay with that.
Well, why would you?
Yeah, no, I would I want the best performance. That's going to be on PC. That's why I left Xbox. And the thing is, all the spend on Xbox that they lost all that from me. Once I went PC, I took all that spend and I applied it to Steam, and CD keys and Epic Games.
Yeah. Now, is anybody on the panel playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth yet? I have a sad story.
No,
I'm starting my adventure tomorrow, just because worked all day today, and then got the show tonight. Might start it tonight, but I know I'm going to be starting.
You got to wrap up the show early, man. Just dive into it.
I don't like that kind of talk, Brap. Nonetheless,
make yourself a nice old fashioned, kick back on that couch.
It's not the weekend yet, but I do like where you're.
Mooch.
I like where your head's at. I like where you're thinking.
Come on.
But yeah, I'll start again with Lono here. Lono, not talking about the game if you haven't gotten a chance to experience it yet, but just maybe talking a little bit about everybody has kind of come out today, especially one individual that it just went viral. I'm talking a little bit about the exclusive deal between Square Enix with this beloved title. We have it with Remake. Here we have it again with Rebirth. What's the scenario here as far as Final Fantasy VII Rebirth? You can discuss a gambit of things with it. First of all, it's scored very, very high on Meta. It's one of the first times in a long time we're seeing the gaming community agree with the critic community. So this game is already being talked about as a possible Game of the Year candidate, if not Game of the Year itself. That being said, what do you think about what you're hearing about how this isn't fair, that this is an exclusive title?
I think it's interesting that it's being framed as, one of the biggest games of the year being, Criminal not being on Xbox, when last year we would probably say, one of the biggest games and most talked about games was Starfield, and that was obviously paraded as a big win as an exclusive. So I find the horse of a different color every other week. No matter what's happening, people are sort of adapting and saying, well, this is what's going to happen now. This is where the industry's going. I remember the day that we heard Sarah Bond had said, every screen is an Xbox, and that happened before the podcast. And I did a show on that, and I said, you watch. I said, write it down. The next astroturfing, the next sort of move will be to demonize exclusives. And it took very little time because Phil Spencer, after their podcast, was quick to sort of dog whistle the whole community and say, I don't know who benefits from Helldivers not being on Xbox. And now the entire, narrative has shifted around. And it's like, I don't understand why people don't just sort of say what they actually think. It always sort of feels like we're parroting what will make this seem, the best, or we're sort of parroting what feel like pre-written PR talking points. And I essentially said on Twitter two things. I said, if you're frustrated about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth not being on Xbox, well, then you should aim your frustrations at Xbox, because they're the ones that deprioritize the console. They're the ones that set themselves up to have the smallest next-gen hardware footprint. They also did a 2-tier box setup, so if you wanted to bring Rebirth to Xbox, you'd have to get it to run on the Series S. So you have the smallest footprint. You have more work that needs to be done to get it to run. I mean, Xbox made this bed, and if you don't like sleeping in it, then get out of it. Like, go to the other side and go, or get all the systems. And the other thing that gets lost in this discussion every time this comes up is everybody wants to demonize PlayStation when Yoshida himself indicated that whenever they are going to build a game, he said, we approach multiple platforms, multiple companies, and they come back with their offers. And so I think people forget that these companies have really valuable property, and they're going to shop it around, and they're going to go where they feel like they get the best deal. In the same Game Informer interview and article where he said this, he said that developing and limiting developing to one system makes it not only easier, but it allows us the ability to optimize it. And they also can then leverage the marketing of PlayStation and have that shouldered for them. So this is not some... it's always sort of cast as this, PlayStation did this and they're making it hard for Xbox. And it's like, well, no, Square Enix has a vested interest in going where it will be the most profitable and economical and the most efficient place for them to put their games. And, that all the fair pushback on me, my prediction that we'll see more day and date on PC, everybody's exactly right. Building for one system, you get a better optimized and better curated product, and currently PlayStation is not set up for parallel development. They're set up for porting. So, for my, prediction to come true, they'd have to change a lot of their infrastructure and a lot of their processes. And when you look at this situation with Rebirth, I just find the narrative shifting and the commentary, I find it to be tiring because it just doesn't ever feel genuine. It sort of feels like, well, we went from exclusives are super important and ZeniMax and Bethesda's going to be exclusive and ABK was going to have exclusives to now acting like exclusives are bad. And that to me, it's frustrating because, again, it feels like astroturfing. It feels like this has been sort of dispersed throughout the mouthpieces to distribute, and I don't know. I want to see more meltdowns and people saying they don't want to do this anymore, and they start pushing back against this kind of nonsense and just saying what they think. I think that's a welcome and refreshing thing because it feels authentic.
Yeah.
The point to what Luno said is look at the way Xbox gamers reacted when Palworld is only on Xbox, right? And PC.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And people would champion it as, oh, look at this exclusive, but then Helldivers, which is also on PC but not on Xbox, and all of a sudden the tune flipped. As soon as Helldivers released, you noticed Palworld came out, everyone quote tweeting the 10 million players, the 7 million players on Xbox. Oh, this is amazing. You can see the place rubbing it in the PlayStation gamer's face. As soon as Helldivers comes around, boom, it switches. And it's been that way since 2013, before 2013.
Well before it did, bro.
Yeah, but well before. Like, this has been an ongoing thing, and it will always switch, and it will do so till the end of time, until either they don't exist, the companies, or, everything is everywhere. Like, that's the only way it'll stop.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing you gotta just look at is, like, for me, of course, I think everybody would like to have all the games be in one place because that makes it so you don't have to be jumping from console to console, where you can kind of save yourself some money on those giant purchases when it comes to buying all these systems. But I always tell people, it always comes back to the exclusive games. Why did you buy the system that you bought? I bought Halo on an Xbox because they bought Bungie and they made it so it wasn't going to be a PC exclusive to Mac. And I actually went out and bought a graphics card with Halo on the back of it, thinking I was going to play Halo on PC. And then Microsoft bought them, and then I bought an Xbox, and that was the journey that started my Xbox. My journey with Xbox, and then the exclusivity of Call of Duty on Xbox for the first 30 days, and getting all the map packs and all of that stuff on top of it being the ecosystem of playing online. Lono know what I'm talking about because we were all there playing Call of Duty on Xbox. It was something that was incredible, and that was something that they brought as an ecosystem. Plus, they brought the games to be able to want to do it. So when I hear people talking about Final Fantasy being upset that it's exclusive, I'm like, well, Final Fantasy VII back in 1997 was exclusive too. It was only on the PlayStation. It did. A lot of these games have only been with the particular platforms they've been on, so they garnered those relationships over the course of time. And then when you just sit back and you think about it, it's like if Sony is willing to put the money on the line to say that we want to be able to get these types of exclusive deals, and the brand is willing to do that deal with them, then you really can't be mad at the situation. It's like you wish that other people would do stuff like that because you don't want to feel like you're being left out. But I also feel like if you don't want to be truly left out in gaming, then you need to find a way to own as many things as you possibly can, because then that way you're truly never left out of it, because gaming is a luxury, like everybody said on here. But ultimately, you have to get the things that kind of speak to you the most. And right now, that's what PlayStation's doing with all of these games.
I mean, it's funny because everyone says, well, this case is different because it's a third-party deal with Square Enix. But if you turn around and actually think about it, Microsoft has done this with Stalker 2. Like you said,
Sure
Pal World.
Yeah.
I know this is a smaller scale, but
Mooch,
Vampire
Mooch,
Survivors.
I gave you 2 hours. I got to go.
I know. Forte, thank you. And shout out to Slow Mo. These guys are starting DPS soon. So when we end here, I'll tell everyone to definitely go over and check out the show, Forte.
No, you're good. 2 minutes, man. I gave you all the way up. So I did it because I haven't been here in a while, and I appreciate you, man, because you always show love to us.
Always,
even when I'm not here, because I work and stuff. So I appreciate it. But shout out to everybody in the chat. We'll see you guys over on DPS if you decide to come over, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you, Forte. Appreciate you being here. But that's an interesting thing. And, here's the quote here from Phil I pulled up. He says, I quote, "I will say, when I look at a game like Helldivers 2, and it's a great game, kudos to the team shipping on PC and PlayStation. I'm not exactly sure who it helps in the industry by not being on Xbox. If you try to twist yourself to say, like, somehow that benefited somebody somewhere." Yeah, so what I would want Phil to say...
does know that the IP is owned by PlayStation, correct?
I'm going to give Phil the benefit of the doubt there to say yes, B. And that just proves my point. So what he should have followed up with that was, and in regard to that, since I feel that way, Hellblade 2 will be on PlayStation. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're going to say that about a first-party game in that sense, it's mind-boggling. That's why you probably, it catches everybody off guard. But Xbox is doing this to a certain extent. Like Stalker 2, I don't know what the exclusivity will be, but it could be anywhere from 3 to 6 months to 12 months. Maybe it'll be 2 years. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Brad, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, Lona brings up a great point, by the way. And Lona, I'm glad I think you've mentioned this on your show too. And I'm glad you're bringing it up because I find it very disingenuous. Like, and it's not just like people in the community, it's influencers, even media types that are doing this. Like, literally, like they were like exclusives matter, and then literally Microsoft changes their marketing PR, and these guys are like, okay, we're gonna switch it. It's almost like they're getting marching orders. Like Phil's like, hey guys, this is this week's word tracks. This is what you need to say on your shows. It's very disingenuous. It's what's interesting. It's like people are arguing. We talked about. I think Lona just mentioned this. We talk about being able to develop for one platform and the amount of optimization that you get by doing that, by being able to focus on one platform and being able to make the best game possible because you're only focused and optimizing for that one piece of hardware. People arguing against that, which I think we would all agree that first-party games or exclusive content on optimized or exclusive games that are optimized for one piece of hardware tend to provide some of the best gaming experience, run the best at times, not always, but usually. This idea of exclusives are bad, it's like people are kind of talking themselves out of a level of quality that first-party games typically produce that third-party games do not, and that's really weird to me. It's like when I buy a $500 console, part of my ROI is first-party exclusives because I know those games are going to be the best games on that platform. They're actually going to take advantage of the new hardware specs. This idea of forget we don't want quality anymore because we want games everywhere and exclusives are bad. That's just a weird argument for me.
Yeah, I don't know how. That's the thing, and it's kind of what Lono said a second ago, and Death Singer said, and B was like, even when I read the quote, he's like, Phil does realize it. It's just a lot of it doesn't make any sense because it's happening on the other side. Which, by the way, I say kudos to Xbox for that. Like if Xbox goes out and gets a deal with a third party publisher, and they don't buy them, and they want to just say, hey, listen, I want this game on my, which by the way was the 360 model.
Yeah, Gears of War.
They killed it. Gears of War, BioShock,
Mass Effect.
Like it's like, come on. This just to me, it's something that they should definitely maybe revisit instead of spending the $100 billion. I know they have different. I shouldn't say it that way because they have a different model. They want to go a different route. I said this to Brap when all this went down. I said Xbox. Everyone was like, "What's going to happen? They're going to go third party." I'm like, Phil said it. They're going to be one of the biggest publishers, if not the biggest publisher out there. So the only caveat that's bad in the space that we all live in is the Xbox console is slowly kind of just they are eroding it away a bit, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do with next generation. If they make this hybrid box, they make a handheld. Go ahead, Death Singer.
Here's the thing: even Nintendo has their third-party exclusives. There is games that only come to them, but then there's also PC. Even has its own exclusives, and with the most played multiplayer games on Earth are exclusive, like League of Legends, not on consoles. You have CrossFire, which is fucking huge in China. Like that game, ridiculous, not on consoles, because the CrossFire they play is not the CrossFire that we got on console. It's a completely different thing, because CrossFire is essentially just a CS:GO clone.
And a great podcast, but yes.
Yeah, it's essentially just that. So everyone has their own exclusives. So it's, if you want to make a game go exclusive, go out and spend the money to make it exclusive, right?
It's funny though, Destinger, because one of the examples. Oh, go ahead, Lona. Go ahead.
I was going to say the other narrative that I don't appreciate is that, well, this is where the market is going. And it's like, why would you think that the market loser is dictating where the market is going? The top 20 games sold last year, 6 of them were console exclusives. So that's roughly a third. And so that to me is not a sign that the market is shifting away. The market's fully in support of console exclusives. They sell incredibly well. I mean, Spider-Man 2 was up there with Zelda and with Hogwarts, and you could only get Spider-Man 2 on roughly 50 million PlayStation 5s. Like, exclusives aren't going anywhere. That idea, I think, is bogus. And if you really want a telltale sign that the Xbox exclusive is no more, it's the fact that all of the Xbox talking heads are demonizing exclusives. Yeah. That is because that it's over. It's no longer going to be a thing. When they say every screen is an Xbox, that is antithetical to saying Xbox exclusive, because what does that even mean anymore if every screen is an Xbox? So we now know the idea of an Xbox exclusive is dead because everybody's got their talking points, and they're all basically acting like exclusives are no more, and that's because they are no more on Xbox.
Yeah, so that brings up a good point then, Lono.
That's a great point. Yeah.
When
it's almost like they're trying to suck the value out of or devalue the idea of exclusives, which is odd.
Well, that's true, Brett. But they're also trying to they're also trying to promote their IP across multiple. They want to be they are what they are. B said this on Brap, I think, when I was on a show about a month ago. Like, the thing about it, or B said it even on this channel. He's like, are we forgetting that they're a software company? That's what they want to do. They don't want. I don't think they want to be in the hardware business. They didn't do a VR unit. Right, they didn't do any. They didn't get into this. That they didn't even make. I mean, they did make the controller, the V2 controller, which I use. I like. I had a little bit of a problem with the bumpers were a bit of a problem, but nonetheless. But they really seem to be getting out of that space, and I find that interesting. I mean, so Lono, you did say though that they, they're kind of working their way right out of it. What's the next game? And this is fun to speculate with, and in the audience, you guys speculate with us. What game do you think is going to be next? Lono, what's the next game you think that we see after these 4 or 5? Some people are counting as whatever it's called there, as Dusk Falls or whatever. They're counting that as well. Whether you want to say 4 or 5 games, what's the next big title that people will care about? Because seemingly right now, Sea of Thieves is actually doing quite well, I believe, on the PlayStation pre-order list.
Well, I mean, it's not surprising. Rare hasn't had a game over there since their business has been a business. So that's a big deal. Like, people like Rare. We all have fond memories of Rare, whether it's, Donkey Kong or the any litany of the games they're starting to bring now, like the RC Pro-Am, like when we saw it. So there's a lot of nostalgia attached to Rare. So that's probably very exciting. A lot of the gamers on PlayStation grew up playing Rare games. And the next game I think that would jump, I think it's undeniable that there will likely be a batch of games in the second half of this year because they did this so quickly. I mean, all 4 of them within a 3-month span. It's just incredible. I don't think anybody thought that. I think when we saw 4, a lot of us thought, oh, that's going to be 1 a quarter, right? There'll be 1 right away, and then they'll spread the rest out. So the fact that they're doing it so quickly, and the fact that the company that helped bring Sea of Thieves started helping them over a year ago. This plan has been in place for a while, and that same company is helping with Fable. So I think going forward, anything that launches far enough out from now will be multi-plat. Blade is a multi-plat. We've kind of known that since the announcement. There's no way that you would announce that game and not say it's an exclusive. If it was an exclusive, you would flex that. So I actually have wondered if the reason we kept hearing about the Gears of War collection and it never happened, I wonder if that's why. If the reason we kept hearing it's coming, and for whatever reason it just never did, is because they put a plan in place to say, let's put the Gears collection multi-plat. Let's put it on Xbox, PC, and PlayStation. And then there's other people looking at the Master Chief collection. If Master Chief makes the jump, then everything is fair game. There will be nothing is considered sacred at that point. I've said Starfield, I believe it is still coming. People were very excited when he said not Starfield, but you got to read between the lines. I think the updates every 6 weeks to Starfield and the Shattered Space DLC, I think they're aiming at having a Phantom Liberty moment. They want to have a 2.0 moment for Starfield. And once that is done, they will then start working on porting that over to PlayStation because they have a very large Bethesda audience on PlayStation. If you go back and look at the Fallout 4 physical sales, PlayStation's got a huge, very, very huge Bethesda audience. So from here on out, I don't think anything lands and stays. I think it will eventually come over if it's big and if it's sold well. That I think. So I actually don't have any guesses outside of the speculation about Gears, because I think we heard about it so much, that would make sense of why it just never showed up.
No, I was just going to say, I wanted to correct myself. So it's not a pre-order. What is the page that you can go to when you see, is it when it shows popular games or popular games visited on PlayStation or something like that? There's a page, because I saw it on Twitter, and it was impressive. It said a lot of people, because you can't pre-order Sea of Thieves quite yet. You can pre-order, I believe, Hi-Fi Rush. You cannot pre-order Sea of Thieves, but I believe Sea of Thieves will do quite decent on PlayStation. I mean, I myself wouldn't. I mean, I have it on Xbox. I'm not going to buy it on PlayStation. I have it, but I'm saying, like, that's the same thing with Hi-Fi Rush. Probably won't. I mean, the trophies are tempting to get on there, but no, I was saying probably not. But there is. I believe it's going to get quite a good reception on PlayStation. Sea of Thieves. Go ahead, Singer.
Because I got my predictions lined up.
What do you got?
I got 3 games. Crackdown 3.
What was the first one?
State of Decay. Crackdown 3.
Oh, Crackdown 3.
State of Decay 2. And Rise Son of Rome. There we go.
Oh, wow. Shout out to Corey Massey. He says it's the recently announced page. Thank you, Corey. I was going to say a bunch of people were putting it on Twitter. I thought it was pre-order. I'm just scrolling through, and it said, wow, this is already very high up on the PlayStation. It was on the recently announced page. Thank you, Corey. I don't know. So, Singer, I'll back up a few of those. Crackdown, maybe?
No, they were trolling. I was trolling with that.
Oh, okay. I was like, my God, I don't know.
I was like, there's no way he thinks that.
State of Decay 2, I think, has legs if they wanted to. Right? They've done a series of different DLC content for that. And, at one point in time, I think it had an audience. That's a maybe. Rise, no way. I mean, maybe you're trolling again. But yeah, no,
I am.
not right.
I
Okay.
was trolling with all those picks.
Well,
No,
I
no.
mean, State of Decay. I don't know if State of Decay 2. I don't know if necessarily would be a troll. That could be something that they could very easily port over.
They could do because it's popular on PC. It does have a good audience.
Yeah, it's got a decent audience.
And with the Juggernaut update, like I still play it because I absolutely love the game, the micromanaging and the base managing. But like the way it runs now,
Yes.
and the way it is now, if you port over the way State of Decay 2 is right now,
Mhm.
oh, I'm sure it'll do fine. Now, Crackdown 3 was and never was. So they were trolling picks, but if I had to pick what the next big game would come, I look through the catalogue of like what kind of outliers are there. And someone keeps popping into mind Starfield. But I think it'll come, but I think it'll be like 2 years from now. Or a year from now? A year or 2 years from now.
Lono's speculation of when that next big update comes is when a lot of people thought that we may hear something, or maybe the update after that. I don't think if that game's coming to PlayStation, I'm going to use your word, Singer. Why are they going to wait 2 years? They'll probably bring it over, within 12 months from now. You know what I mean? If not, then I don't think it comes at all. It's one or the other. It's either it's 12 months or forget about it.
But if you look at the way they chose these games, though, the way they spoke about it, two are community-driven games and two are smaller games. So why choose these four to start off with when you want to lead off with a bigger game to make a punch? Because as good as Grounded and Sea of Thieves is,
I have an answer.
Really neat. Go on.
My answer would be that we found out that Sea of Thieves started this transition back in January of 23. So when they started that, remember, you had a situation where Starfield was probably still, being worked on just to get it to work on PC and Xbox. So they need more time.
So then, when we release something else beforehand, like you could,
I do agree with you. I do agree with you that it should have been maybe a bigger title for a bigger splash. I do agree with you, but I think once they are ready and they are capable of doing it, it's more than likely it will make its way over.
Oh yeah, well, I'm not saying it's never coming over.
Yeah,
it's
no,
coming over. I just don't think it's going to be in like the year time period.
Interesting.
But what other big title would they have that would make a splash?
That's a legitimately great question, B.
Like if you brought over the Gears collection, that'd make a massive splash. Like the Gears collection would light the house on fire.
Yes.
Once you put over those tentpole franchises,
yep.
Then that's the white flag.
That's right.
But they've been flying that flag for a while now.
No, but all the hysteria that happened pre the podcast, that would be 100 times worse than what it was.
That's right.
Because that's the white flag. That's saying that literally everything is coming.
Yeah. Once you
put a lot of these smaller games that a lot of people weren't playing with Pentiment and Hi-Fi Rush, and they put the community games, which makes sense because you're adding more people to the player pool, so it'd be larger. So it's not as big of a hit. But once you start putting the Forzas, the Gears of Wars, the Halos, that's the white flag, and that's when people really start mass exiting your console, because then they feel like, well, why do I need that? I can get one console and get all of your games. Yeah,
because that's the truth. Once you bring over a Gears, at that point, you open the doors now open for Halo. We'll throw Forza in there. Although I don't know if Sony. People were saying I don't know if Sony would allow Forza on their platform, because they certainly wouldn't want something to compete against GT.
Well, I mean, there are other racing games on the platform well as Gran Turismo.
That is true. Very true, actually. So, I mean, I'll stand corrected on that. I have no problem. I just saw people mentioning that because Forza always seems to be that one that goes head-to-head with it. But now, there's actually one called F1 something or another that actually
there's F1.
I mean, they have all the major racing games are on PlayStation. Yeah, WRC, Grid is there. Yep. They have all the simulation racers. They just aren't as big as GT, on that platform. So I'm sure they would happily welcome Forza, because then that just brings a large number of people who are going to buy that game. That's additional revenue for them for a game that they didn't have to work on.
No, I completely agree.
I assume, though, the next batch of games will be older games. Now, I'm having a hard time remembering because they haven't released many games first party recently. Like, as we all know, it's been a drought in the Xbox first party for a while. I mean, there was the odd ones here and there. So it's really hard to cherry pick outside of, like, Halo, Gears, and Forza. Like, what is available. So, I think...
I mean... The biggest one, in my opinion, that is overlooked is Killer Instinct.
Yes,
it's literally
that would do really well.
It's stranded on that console, and it has no presence in the FGC. Like there's no presence for it at Evo. If they're going to continue to work on that IP, I think they need to put it everywhere. And being on PlayStation would make a big difference for that IP.
It will, because that's where the fighting game community is. Yeah, I didn't think about Killer Instinct yet. That's a really good show.
People in chat are saying Hellblade 2. I actually think Hellblade 2 would do phenomenally well on PlayStation 5. The third-person perspective, the combat. Yeah. Hellblade's like my all-time favorite game. I can't wait for Hellblade 2. However, they were not even in full production in 2021, so I don't know if there's been enough time between now and then to suddenly start doing parallel development. So I do think Hellblade will make the jump, but I believe it will be a port. I don't know if that would be... I don't know if there would be enough time this year for them to do that. I feel like their dev window has been kind of small, and they're also a small studio. I actually have concerns about Hellblade 2 for that reason. So I would love to see Hellblade make the jump. And yeah, I think Killer Instinct is a good one to throw out there. You know, people are saying Quantum Break. I think the real challenge will be they chose 4 games that sort of have an appeal all in their own way. Outside of those 4, I think that's kind of what Dessinger was getting at. It's like there hasn't been much this gen that has done that. Forza Horizon, Halo Infinite, and then there was a huge drought, and then Redfall. I don't see them doing that with Redfall.
No.
I don't even know if they've honored the Bite Back edition yet. There's supposed to be like new characters and stuff. Just a disaster there. I've seen people suggest Flight Simulator, and I'm not sure about that either, just because it has Microsoft in the name. Microsoft Flight Simulator, that might be a bit of a stiff arm to PlayStation. I know when you go to buy the games, it says Microsoft Corporation is like the publisher or whatever, which is interesting. It doesn't say Xbox Game Studios. I'm not really sure why that is the way that it is, but I don't know. With Microsoft in the name, that might be enough to make PlayStation say, yeah, we're good. We don't want that over here. But I think it'd be awesome, especially if they could get it to work with the PSVR2.
Yes.
But then again, don't you have to have... Didn't someone say about you need a Microsoft account to play Grounded or Sea of Thieves?
Yes.
Yes.
And Minecraft also has this, where you need a Microsoft account. So I would view it, they're fine with that being there, so maybe they wouldn't mind so much just with Microsoft in the name of the game.
If you both could clarify for me, I know that I saw that you would have to sign in with your Microsoft account. I thought that was to bring over your saved files from your Xbox or PC, but you also need to do it just to play the game on PlayStation. So you will need a Microsoft account to play it on PlayStation, or you will not.
The PlayStation Store page does seem to confirm that players will need a Microsoft account to play, so I don't know if that's purely for cross-progression, but I'm seeing that being reported from multiple outlets. Pure Xbox is saying it, Game Rant, everybody's saying it, and they're basing it off of the actual store page that's signifying that. So I do think that will be a requirement, which... If they allow that, I've actually got concerns about Sea of Thieves if crossplay can't be turned off because of the veterans that play that game. Going to be pretty unpleasant if you're a brand new Sea of Thieves.
It's going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty unpleasant to be a brand new Sea of Thieves player on PlayStation 5 and playing against those people, because I got to tell you, they're ruthless. The remaining core that plays that game, buddy, they're tough. They'll sink you pretty fast.
100% on that.
But they did release an update for Safer Seas, which disallows PvP.
It's largely just a tutorial. I was kind of disappointed that it's very limited. Yeah, it's very limited. You don't really progress anything. that'd be a great way for PS5 players to kind of have a safe haven to kind of get their feet wet, no pun intended. But if they actually want to make progression and play the game as it's designed, they'll have to leave safer seas. So we'll hope to see that, hey, you can uncheck the crossplay box, because I think crossplay is great, but for a game like that, it can be harmful to the experience of a new player.
I completely agree.
I personally would don my Xbox sails on my ship and go sink a couple of PlayStation ships. I would honestly do that. I'd get my band of merry men and be like, how many treasure chests you got? 10? Okay, let me know when you got 20 and I'll come back and revisit it. So I could take all your treasure chests.
I will say this. I told these guys we'd go 2 hours. I did promise a few people in the chat that I would discuss this, and I've only got about 2 or 3 hours in right now. And with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth coming out, that's going to consume my entire, probably next 2 weeks. But, even when you're playing a beloved game like Final Fantasy, sometimes you just want to kind of put the controller down. You want to, step away, take a break. I'm going to pick the controller back up, and I'm going to play a game called Pacific Drive. And I just want to talk about it for a minute. It's not for everybody, but Death Singer said something, and I was going to piggyback off of what he said when he was describing how he still plays State of Decay 2 because of how he was saying the micromanaging and parts and resources. This is a unique game, and it's on PlayStation and it's on PC. And I put it out there. Shout out to I believe it was Ironwood Studios. I got the review code, and there was no option. There was no PlayStation or PC. They just give you the PC code. So I'm playing on PC, and I gotta say, this game is a lot of fun. But you have to be that type of gamer. If you're not the type of gamer that wants to go out, literally find resources, come back, build up your car, be able to go further out. And again, I'm only 2 or 3 hours in. But I really didn't want to put the controller down. And I was like, I wish this game came out 3 weeks ago. Because I'm going to end up putting it down only for the reason that I really want to play Final Fantasy and I want to be in the conversations, and there'll be spoiler casts and there's going to be talk behind the scenes. So I'm very excited to talk about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. But I don't know if anybody on the panel's playing it or looked into it, but it's interesting. It's not something that's going to sell 25 million copies by no stretch of the imagination. But it is doing very well, I believe, critically. And, shout out to even Gamer Ranks and these other channels. And I believe even SkillUp said he recommends. It's a very good game. It's a lot of fun. The story, the narrative, the voice acting is very good. You're not just in the car the whole time. You are out of the car gathering resources. You have to get this to get that. It's a function situation, and it's a lot of fun. I think, but you have to be that type of gamer. It's nothing like, Helldivers, of course. There's none of that stuff. It's really going out, gathering, coming back, making yourself stronger. But the way they do it, again, with the narrative, the voice acting is very good. Post-apocalyptic, no, it's not zombies, but it's a very creepy environment where it's very Remedy inspired in my mind, because it's like Control. There's just things for no reason while you're driving down the road floating, and the ground just loosens up and blasts in front of you. And it's got this great soundtrack, and it's not something I'm selling to you at 2.5, 3 hours in. But if you are that resource management, and you anyone who's watched me on Twitch knows that I'm a collectible lunatic. I absolutely love it. This is a game for you. Even if you watch and there's a few people in the chat that have gamed with me playing Helldivers too. I am the one. I literally evacuated the other day. I think I had 30 resources of samples. I literally, the minute that bug nest is gone, I'm picking up everything. I'm searching around. Even if some of my team starts to go to the next objective, I'm still searching around to see if there's that one rare sample left behind. So in this aspect, to be able to go in and just scavenge and find things, and shout out to Chad Study, says it's a highly recommended by SkillUp. But listen, there's things that SkillUp have liked that I haven't. So it's nice that these guys also agree. But one of the ones I would say go see is Jake. I think it's Jake Baldino. Does a great job on Gamer Ranks. He says a great before you buy, and it's interesting. But I enjoyed it. I'm going to continue playing it, but I'm probably going to. Mr. E says Mooch is a hoarder in real life. No, but maybe a little. I don't know. Who knows? Old Italian people. That's what Italians do. But yeah, it is one of those things. I think it's something that if you're interested in it, check things out on YouTube. Go see some of the gameplay. Watch some of those reviews. But it's definitely. I thought it was gonna be one of those games I just struck up, played it, Played an hour and was like, nah, not for me. And I played like 2.5 hours. And like I said, I will when I want to take a break from Final Fantasy, because Final Fantasy seemingly is going to be anywhere from 80 to 100 hours. It's a fun little game to play and pick up and put down. And you don't have to be, it's not serious like that. So it's kind of a fun game. I don't know, Lono or Death Singer B, did you guys see?
I have.
Yeah. Did you guys, is there any interest, Death Singer? Because you mentioned that you do like micromanaging games. This is right up your alley.
I'm a huge RTS. People know, like I've got, so far, like last year I would now have like 1,000 hours on Age of Empires 2 on Steam. I just go really hard for like Civilization. And all these, I love going out and finding resources. Now, it's a wait for a sale for me. Because
Understood.
Because right now, I've got too much going on. I'm in the middle, I've just finished Persona 3 Reload. I'm now going into Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. So, obviously, I'm going for back-to-back massive JRPGs. Mm-hmm. So, it's... But, I mean, in 6 months, it'll be on sale, so I'll be like, okay, cool, I'll pick it up then, when it could, the inevitable Steam sale comes around.
Yeah, and listen, there's nothing that I would say that would even deter you a bit. It's just not one of those games. I would say that with the backlog you have and the games that are coming out in the next, you've got Final Fantasy VII, you've got Rise of the Ronin, you've got Dragon's Dogma 2, which... That I'm going to say for
I gotta play Dragon's Dogma 2 as well. Yeah.
And that's going to be a podcast in its own, because Dragon's Dogma 2 is something I can't wait to play. But it seems like whether you're talking about console or PC, this game may have some performance issues. I mean, they're saying even the strongest PC is going to be playing at 30 frames. Is that true, Death Singer? I don't know.
There was a thing saying that the developers want to put it at 30. But the problem is with PC, this will never work ever, because a modder I give it 4 hours of game release will have a mod which completely unlocks the frame rate, and you can put it at whatever you want.
Okay.
Like 30 FPS has never been a thing. Like people will mod. There is a way. Like the developers could go, well, it's only going to do 30. No, they'll find a way. Trust me, they'll find a way. In a matter of hours, it'll be done. So. On console, you're looking at 30. Like, there's no way around it.
Well, that's what they're saying. I know there's some rumors out there. I'm not going to run with them. That there are some rumors saying that the PS5 Pro may be able to pull in more, but the Pro doesn't. At best, it'll come out late in the year, and Dragon's Dogma is coming out next month. And then it's Rise of the Ronin, and of course, then you have Stellar Blade. So, and then there's Hellblade 2 as well in May.
It's Space Marine 2 as well.
Space Marine 2. Thank you very much. Yes, that's something I would pick up on PC.
Yeah.
I think you can only play it on PC.
Co-op.
Can you play it?
Yep.
Is it now coming to console, or it's only on PC as well?
I believe it is coming to console.
I thought I heard that, so I didn't want to misspeak.
I believe it is coming to console. But either way, yeah, we'll definitely co-op-in. Like, we'll get a couple of people, because it's 4-player co-op, so it's a co-op game.
Shout out to Dr. Martin Van Nostrand. He just wants everybody to know, Mooch, Dune 2 was epic, by the way. So that just came out. I got through Dune 1, but I got to watch Dune 1 again, and then I would go to C2. Dune 1, I know that was a mixed feeling across the board. I got to watch it again before I give my comment on it. Maybe I was a little too tired when I watched it the first time. But Lono, yeah, so I mean, I don't know, specific drive, something that interests you, or that type of thing is a snooze fest. I could see that being a pretty fun game with, evenings with Madam on Friday.
I was watching it for a while and was super interested. I actually bought it on my PS5.
Oh, nice.
Sadly on Fridays, I only have, like, my schedule shifts. I only had an hour to play it before I do my show with Mike.
Yeah.
And a buddy of mine said the first hour is kind of rough, and I was like, I don't know if I want to stream an hour of me kind of struggling with the system. So that's kind of one that's kind of sitting there, and I'm glad you said that. That one might be a fun Friday night to like see, if Madam or myself can play the game better than the other, because I've been following it for a while. I was glad to see it was getting good reception. It's got a good score on PlayStation. It's got a pretty good score on Steam as well, on 81%. So I thought it looked so interesting, and it seems like it has like a vibe.
Yes.
The lighting and the music, and so even when I first turned it on, I thought, oh, this game's going to have kind of a feel to it. So It's still installed. I still want to play it. I didn't think it was going to be a good idea to stream just 1 hour of it.
No, and just to piggyback off that, Lono, no, I would not recommend to stream that first hour. Go ahead and get yourself acclimated. Do the first mission. Come back to the garage. That's where you'll want to start your stream. At that point, what's nice about it too is I think it's a great streaming game. People do watch that. People like to watch this type of activity, but it also it's a type of game with pacing where you can really pay a lot of attention to your chat. It's not always, I mean, when you're out there on the road and you're heading back with the materials, you're going to be paying attention to the game because you definitely will get sideswiped. There's all kinds of objects coming at you that are, I don't know what they are, some kind of post-apocalyptic paranormal. I don't know what it is, but nonetheless, it is a great streaming game. I whoever gave you that suggestion was right on point. That first hour, it's just not. It's more of you just learning what's going on, and that would put your audience to sleep. So that was the right move. That being said, because I did promise the guys that I would talk about it. It's too early for me to say go buy right now. I think Death Strander kind of said it best when he said basically you got a situation here where I like it, but maybe not love, and a sale may be the way to go. So that's something that I really think that he kind of nailed right there. If you are that type of gamer that does love that micromanaging, that parts management, in that post-apocalyptic world, I do have to mention the narrative is great, the voice acting very good, and the environment is spot on. So if you like those types of things, you can give it a shot. If you're not playing Final Fantasy, give it a shot. If you want to wait for a sale, I definitely would say that that's a smart move. That being said, I do want to say it's 9:30 over here in New York, and I know these people have a lot of games to play this weekend, starting tonight. I'm very, very excited. It's so funny. I wanted to start Final Fantasy, but I want to start Final Fantasy with a fresh pot of coffee and go right through. So tonight, you might, if you see me online, definitely be playing a little bit of Helldivers 2 tonight, and then get started tomorrow and work my way right through the weekend on Final Fantasy. That being said, I'll go in reverse order and say, Lono, thanks for being here. And you know what I promised you happened in reverse. At least what I promised you happened, and that makes me feel good, Lono. So as you had a smaller panel as the show went on, as I said, it was going to actually the panel was supposed to actually get larger as we went on, but nonetheless, Lono, great to have you here. Please do keep doing what you're doing. Tons of entertainment. I love the short clips that we get to see on Twitter, the shorts. Keep everything going. Let everybody know where they can find you. And thanks for being here tonight.
Well, yeah, I appreciate you having me. And I've told my audience, I'm bad at the, 7 people trying to talk thing. I'm so bad at it. I don't have the skills.
I think it's a you thing. And you're not bad.
Well, I appreciate the show, and I do like it when it strips down to just a couple of us. I thought this conversation's been great the entire time. It's been a really good time, and if people want to check me out, Reforge Gaming, easiest way to find me on Twitter and YouTube. Reforge Gaming is where the content hits, where the streams are, and appreciate it. And yeah, no shows tomorrow though. I'm not able to do anything on Friday, but everything will resume on Monday.
Very cool, Lono. Very cool. Great to have you here, and we look forward to Monday's content. The great B Money, who was with us. B, I know you had a lot going on today. You dropped everything to be on the show. I love when we have topics like this, especially when it gets into some of the executive talk, some of the business end of things. B, you've been making calls for a long time, and it's nice to see that the stuff you've been saying is coming to fruition. Love it when you're on the show. Let people know where they can find you, B, and of course, looking forward to your next return to Crossfire.
Yeah, I appreciate you sending an invite over. I was glad I was able to make it. You can find me everywhere. Same name, B Money 101. I just want to give a quick shout out to Unicorn Overlord, tactical RPG that's coming out the first week of March. I believe it's March 8th. So if you're into that, definitely check it out. Got a chance to play the demo over the last week, and it's really good. So definitely check that out if you're into it. But other than that, appreciate the conversation. Great topics tonight, Mooch. And once again, thanks for the invite, man.
Always be great to have you here. And then the great Death Singer as well also came to the show, added tons of value as always. Singer, we love having you on the show, buddy. We really got to have you on more often. Of course, this means I'll probably bother you and have you on more often. Singer,
the DMs are always open.
That's what's great about you, buddy. You talk games, and I love to hear your takes on the gaming industry. Singer, let people know where they can find you, and thanks for being here tonight.
No problem. Thank you. Thanks for the invite, Mooch. I had to suddenly go, oh, crap. Let me quickly throw everything on and jump in. But it was a great show, great panel. And it was just a great time. I mean, lots of interesting perspectives. And you can find me at Dessinger literally everywhere. It's all my gaming things in my bio, so you can find it.
The great Death Singer, I appreciate that. And let me just take a second here to say, shout out to Brap, who had to leave early. It's Basement Radio Arcade Podcast. You know where to find him over on Wednesday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Shout out also to the Gaming Forte and the Great Slow-Mo Backslap, who are live right now. I'll be retweeting them out and letting you know where to find them on DPS. They go every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Great show by those two gentlemen there, and they have some great guests on from time to time as well. It's an outstanding show. Just looking here, the great David Faulkner is going to be with us next week. I asked David to join us. He was going to join us the second hour, but with everything that was going on, I said, David, are you free next week? I want to get a full dose of the entirety of his analysis of what's going on. So he says, yes, I'll be there next week for the entirety. So great to have him there. Really appreciate it. And of course, the great Craig Harris. Guys, go over and follow him on Twitter. Craig Harris 456. Outstanding. We've gamed tons of Helldivers too. Had him on the show. Love his takes. Lots of fun. Enjoys gaming. Has fun doing it. That's what's important about the entire thing, is having him come on the show and have a blast doing that. So guys, I want to say this much. Please, on the way out, hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Your name still comes up in lights. Shout out to the great Andy Hart. He says, how about Hellblade 2 Quantum Break going to Sony? Andy, I was going to read that, and then Lono actually saw those, and he was like, I see the chat saying that. So shout out to Andy Hart for the super chat. You guys are all fantastic. Again, I think we finally did it. I think we cracked over the 12,000 subscribers. I want to say thank you. For me, that means the world to me. Let's keep this channel growing. Please do consider joining and becoming a Mooch Maniac family member. Shout out again to MASH with the 20 gifted member subs. That means the world to me too. Mash, great to have you as part of the family, and you will always be mentioned week in and week out here. Guys, that being said, we'll see you next Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern. I said I was going to do some streaming last weekend. Didn't get to it. We streamed a lot the weekend before. If we can actually get off of Final Fantasy and get a little Helldivers in there, or maybe even a little Pacific Drive, we may go over there. And it'll be twitch.tv/MoochTV. It's drop the O's for zeros, M00CHTV. That being said, enjoy a couple of drinks tonight. Friday's on the way. Enjoy games. Check out Final Fantasy. We'll talk more about it next week. Peace out and good night.